Chapter 9-11. If it weren't for Jiyuchi's investigation, she wouldn't have been able to tell that they were lovers. Yao Jingjing politely introduced them to Jin Mingyao. Yao, this is Zisu's sister Yuchi. Sister Yuchi, this is our former class monitor. We all call him Yao. Jin Mingyao smiled like a gentleman. Yuchi. It's a beautiful name. It suits you very well. Jiyuchi rubbed the rose in her hand and smiled. Thank you. You seem to be very good at performing magic. He raised his eyebrows. If you like magic, I can perform it for you. I love watching magic shows. Jin Mingyao raised his eyebrows and smiled. He waved his hand in the air and a beautiful lily appeared in his empty hand. He gave the lily to Yi Zisu. A pure and quiet lily. It suits you best. Yi Zisu smiled shyly and took the lily. Jin Mingyao's movements were very fast. One could only see his hands waving in the air. Flowers of different types and colors flew in his hands, disappearing and reappearing in a different color. Everyone watched with great interest. Even the couples who were dancing couldn't help but stop and admire in a daze. In the end, all the flowers turned into petals and a colorful rain of petals fell from the sky. He put his hand on his chest and bowed to everyone present like a gentleman. Yi Zisu was the first to applaud. Jiyuchi followed suit. Then the applause was like thunder. That's great. It's the first time I've seen such a wonderful performance. Sister Chi-Chi, it's wonderful, isn't it? Yi Zisu stared at Jin Mingyao with shining eyes. The corners of Jiyuchi's lips curled up as she praised. That's right, very good. Jin Mingyao watched with satisfaction as Jiyuchi and Yi Zisu became infatuated with his wonderful performance. He gracefully walked up to Jiyuchi and extended his right hand in a gentlemanly manner. With a charming smile, he said, "Beautiful Miss Yuchi, may I invite you to dance?" Jiyuchi put her hand in his palm. "It's my pleasure." Romantic music flowed slowly under the blurred lights. The men and women on the dance floor danced. Jin Mingyao put his hand on her waist. Feeling her slender waist under his palm, his heart surged. He couldn't wait to drag her onto the bed. However, now wasn't the time. As a qualified beast in human clothing, he had to capture her heart first and then dominate her. The atmosphere of the ball was very lively, and the young men and women were all having a crazy time. Regardless of whether they knew each other or not, they all raised their glasses and tried to persuade each other to drink. Jiyuchi drank one glass of beer after another with the wild crowd. Yi Zisu knew that this ball was a trap to help Jin Mingyao capture Jiyuchi. At first, she was vigilant and worried that she would be dragged into the water. But later she played too much. When Yao Jingjing toasted her, she couldn't help but drink 2 glasses. Soon Jiyuchi was drunk. She leaned weakly on the sofa and stared at the dancing men and women on the dance floor with drunken eyes. She giggled. "Yuchi, what are you laughing at?" Jin Mingyao had been paying attention to her. When he found that she was drunk, he immediately sat beside her quietly. Jiyuchi tilted her head and looked at him. Her beautiful phoenix eyes were slightly narrowed. She looked confused. "Who are you?" Jin Mingyao smiled helplessly. "I'm your friend, Yao." She frowned and thought. After a while she suddenly grinned. Fresh flowers, so many fresh flowers. She was so charming that Jin Mingyao couldn't help but reach out and gently caress her cheek. He whispered, "That's right, fresh flowers. I can conjure more fresh flowers. Come with me. I'll conjure fresh flowers for you to see." She suddenly shook off his hand. She puffed up her cheeks and said angrily, "No, I want Zisu. I want to go home." She staggered to her feet and shouted, "Zisu, where are you?" At this time Yi Zisu was dancing with a handsome man. When she heard Jiyuchi's voice, she looked over and saw Jin Mingyao pestering Jiyuchi. She hurriedly pushed away her dance partner and rushed over. She asked with concern, "Jiyuchi Jia, are you drunk?" "Hee, I'm not drunk." Jiyuchi giggled foolishly. She pointed at her nose and said, "You're Zisu. Let's go home." "I want to go home." Okay. Let's go home." With so many people watching, Yi Zisu obviously couldn't push her into Jin Mingyao's arms. She supported her steadily. After saying goodbye to everyone, she helped Jiyuchi out of the private room. After Yi Zisu helped Jiyuchi into the car, she immediately leaned against the back of the seat and fell asleep. Yi Zisu tried to call her twice but she didn't respond. The car sped all the way and finally stopped in front of a 5-star hotel. Yi Zisu glanced at Jiyuchi, who was sleeping soundly in the front passenger seat. Her lips curled into a cold arc. She said coldly, "Jiyuchi, don't blame me. If you want to blame someone, blame Jiang Tianhao. If he didn't force me, I wouldn't have done this." The car stopped in the parking lot for a few minutes. A man dressed in black, wearing a hat and sunglasses quickly walked over and knocked on the window. Izisu pushed open the car door and looked at the man in front of her. She said, "I've already brought Jiyuchi here. Can you return the photo to me now?" Jiang Tianhao pushed the sunglasses on his nose and said in a low voice, "Help me get her into the hotel room." Izisu frowned in displeasure. "You're a man. Can't you get her up there?" "I'm a man. I'm too eye-catching. Help me. Besides, the photo isn't on me. I put it in the hotel room." Izisu had no choice but to help him get Jiyuchi into the hotel room. After putting her on the bed, she turned around and said impatiently, "Can you give me the photo now?" Jiang Tianhao chuckled, "I put it in the drawer by the bed. Wait for me, I'll get it for you." He squatted down, took out a stack of photos from the drawer and handed them to Izisu. "These are all the photos." Izisu was not in a hurry to take it and asked with a dark face, "There's also the memory card." Jiang Tianhao shook his head. "Don't tell me you still don't believe me? I've already destroyed the memory card and all that's left are these photos." Izisu sneered, "I used to believe you, but you personally shattered my trust in you. Let me tell you, Jiang Tianhao, I'm not afraid of you hiding the photos. I've already recorded our entire conversation, and if you dare to go back on your word, I'll tell Jiyuchi that you're the one who harmed her. Just wait for her and Shinja's revenge. Oh right, and Ji Bowen, he treasures his daughter so much, he definitely won't let you off either." Alright, I'll remember it all. I'm not a fool, I won't take such a risk. These are really all the photos. Take them. Izisu looked at him again, then took the photos. She stuffed the photos into her handbag, and just as she was about to turn around and leave, she felt a pain at the back of her head. Her vision went black and she fell to the ground, unconscious. Jiang Tianhao stood beside her, kicked her leg and sneered, "Don't you like men? Tonight I'll give you one." After confirming that she was unconscious, Jiang Tianhao picked her up from the ground and placed her on the bed. He looked at Jiyuchi and Izisu lying side by side, one delicate and beautiful, the other elegant. So what if he was powerful? It was still Gigai lying here. He raised his eyebrows proudly and muttered, "A pair of beautiful sisters. Jin Mingyao, that bastard, he really took advantage of me." His gaze fell on Jiyuchi's face again. Her cheeks were stained red from drunkenness, and her long eyelashes were like butterflies, resting quietly on her eyelids. She was so beautiful that it was intoxicating. He couldn't help but reach out, wanting to caress her cheek. When he was just a few centimeters away, she suddenly opened her eyes. Her gaze was as cold as ice, and her voice was extremely calm. "Jiang Tianhao, we meet again." Jiang Tianhao was so shocked that he shrank back and quickly retracted his fingers. Before he could think of an excuse, Jiyuchi suddenly gave him a strange smile. Then she quickly jumped up and struck his neck with her palm. This was what it meant to be the mantis stalking the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. The moment before Jiang Tianhao fainted, this was the only thing left in his mind. "Hi baby, I'm here." Jin Mingyao thought that he was smiling flirtatiously, but in reality he was smiling wretchedly as he pushed open the bedroom door. On the bed, only Izisu was lying. She had taken off her entire body, leaving only her underwear. There was no one else in the room. The smile on Jin Mingyao's face froze. What was going on? Weren't there supposed to be two people? How did it become one? He discontentedly dialed Jiang Tianhao's cell phone, but it was turned off. Damn it, Jiang Tianhao actually lied to him. He must make him look good. But now the beauty was lying on the bed. Of course he had to spend a good night with her. Before coming to the hotel, he had already eaten a few Viagra. Now was the time for the medicine to take effect. He immediately pounced on Izisu like a hungry wolf pouncing on its prey. Izisu was in a daze. She felt that someone was violating her, so she struggled with all her might. She liked to spend a good night with a man, but she didn't like to be forced. However, her struggle was suppressed by the man. She was so anxious that she cried out, but the man became more and more aggressive, forcefully entering her. She screamed loudly in pain. Under the influence of the medicine, Jin Mingyao tirelessly tortured Izisu. Just as the two of them were endlessly passionate, a man actually climbed up from the bottom of the boat. The man's cheeks were red, his eyes were bloodshot, and his whole body was uncomfortably hot. He was about to explode from the heat. He quickly took off his clothes and threw himself on Jin Mingyao's back in a daze. Ah! A painful roar instantly echoed in the room, mixed with a sound that seemed to be both happy and painful. "Jiang Tianhao, you bastard, get off of me." Jin Mingyao was in so much pain that he was about to die. He was a man, but he was actually being done by Jiang Tianhao, who was also a man. This kind of humiliation, this kind of pain almost drove him crazy. Attention Hongcha 866. Chapter 9:12. Jiang Tianhao's mind was filled with nothing but lust. He could not listen to anything and just repeated his actions mechanically. The two people who were pinned down by him were almost suffocating. Yizisu looked at the ceiling with tears in her eyes. She was on the verge of a breakdown. Her hands groped around, trying to find something to drive Jin Mingyao and Jiang Tianhao away. Finally, she found a fruit knife on the bedside table. She said, "Ihan, take me away." She raised the knife and stabbed it into the back of the man on top of her. 1 stab, 2 stab, 3 stab. Fresh blood dyed her cheeks and eyes red. She laughed madly, and her laughter was terrifying in the midst of the lewd atmosphere. 3 badly mutilated bodies were lying haphazardly on the messy bed. Blood soaked the white sheets and the air was filled with the thick smell of blood. Yizisu pushed Jin Mingyao's body away and got up with lifeless eyes. She was still holding the knife in her hand. She slowly got off the bed and walked step by step out of the room filled with the smell of death. A minute later, the hotel's cleaning staff covered her mouth and screamed in horror. She saw a naked woman covered in blood. She was holding a bloody fruit knife in her hand. Her hair was disheveled as she walked down the corridor. Every step she took, she left a bloody footprint on the corridor carpet. Help! Someone's killing me. The staff threw down the cart and ran away in panic. Her terrified screams echoed throughout the hotel. The hotel lobby manager quickly called the police and brought 2 security guards to track Yizisu down. Unexpectedly, they finally found her on the rooftop. She was like a walking corpse without any thoughts or emotions. No matter what others said, she didn't react at all. Her unfocused eyes stared blankly in front of her as she walked step by step towards the guardrail. She was like a puppet being led by a string. She slowly climbed up the high railing. As long as her body leaned forward, she would be crushed to pieces. "Miss, that's too dangerous. Please don't get agitated." The police rushed over and surrounded the hotel building. A few members of the team quickly climbed up to the roof and stood about 7 or 8 meters away from Yizisu, trying to persuade her to come down from the railing. Yizisu felt goosebumps all over her body. It was also at this moment that her dazed mind suddenly woke up. She shivered. She saw tall buildings and a bottomless abyss. Her nose smelled the thick smell of blood. She suddenly screamed in horror and threw away the dagger in her hand. Her other hand firmly grabbed the railing. She didn't want to die, she couldn't die. The policeman noticed the change in her mood and gently advised her, "You're still young and you still have a long way to go. No matter what happens, you can always start over. Think about your family, they're all worried about you." Yes, she was still young. She still had a long way to go. She didn't want to ruin her life because of 2 scumbags. Her uncle was going to be a high-ranking official in Ying City. Even if she had to kill those scumbags, he would still save her. The cold wind continued to blow and she was shivering from the cold. Suddenly she burst into tears. Her cries were hysterical, and it was so desperate that it made people's expressions change. The police captain hurriedly gave a look, and a policewoman quietly went forward. She hugged her waist and carried her down from the railing. Then a member of the team brought a blanket and wrapped Yizisu's body. Then a pair of handcuffs were placed on her wrists. The policewoman who saved her held her arm and said, "Miss, you're suspected of murder. Please come with us." In this murder case, 1 victim was dead and the other was injured. The deceased was Jin Mingyao. His father, Jin Yahue, was the second in command of Ying City. The seriously injured person was Jiang Tianhao. He was the ex-husband of the murderer. The murderer was the second miss of the G group. She also had an uncle who was a high-ranking official in Hanqing. Just based on the identities of these 3 people, this case was very eye-catching. It caused a huge reaction in society. Jin Yahue had a son at an old age. He only had 1 son and that was why he spoiled him so much. In the past, he didn't care about his son's private life. He thought that it wasn't a big deal for a man to be dissolute. He didn't expect that his son would die in the hands of a woman one day. If he had known that this day would come, he would have restrained his son. But it was too late for regrets now. Jin Yahue seemed to have aged more than 10 years overnight. When he faced the media, he only said 1 sentence, "A life for a life. I hope that the murderer will be punished by the law." This sentence showed that he wanted to punish Yizisu severely. It also showed that he wanted to go against Lu Jianfeng. One was the second in command of Ying City, while the other was the future leader of Ying City. If the 2 of them were to fight, who would win and who would lose? Ying City's media received instructions from the higher-ups to hide part of the truth of the murder case. They announced to the public that Jin Mingyao and Yizisu were a couple. Unexpectedly, Yi Zissou betrayed Jin Mingyao and had an affair with her ex-husband. Jin Mingyao was flustered and exasperated. He went to the hotel to catch them in the act. Yi Zissou flew into a rage out of humiliation. She picked up a fruit knife and killed Jin Mingyao. She even injured Jiang Tianhao by accident. According to them, Yi Zissou was guilty of intentional murder. What a load of nonsense. When Chen Tingfang saw this false news, she slammed the newspaper on the table. She lifted her head to look at the man sitting opposite her and said angrily, "Cousin, the media is spouting nonsense. Yesterday, I went to the detention center to visit Zissou. She told me that Jin Mingyao and Jiang Tianhao were in cahoots and wanted to rape her. She picked up the fruit knife out of self-defense. Cousin, I beg you please help Zissou. Otherwise she will be sentenced to death." As she spoke, tears fell from Chen Tingfang's eyes. She remembered that when she saw her daughter yesterday, her daughter cried and begged for her forgiveness. She said that she knew she was wrong. Her daughter even knelt down and kowtowed to her. Even though many bad things had happened between them in the past, her daughter was still a piece of flesh that fell from her womb. How could she not feel heartache? Chen Tingfang wiped her tears sadly. She was sad about her daughter's situation. Lu Jianfeng sighed. I watched Zissou grow up. How could I bear to see her suffer? But Tingfang, you know that I haven't received my transfer order yet. If something goes wrong, this promotion will be ruined. Forget about saving Zissou, I won't even be able to protect myself. So, I can't openly go against Jin Yahui. I have to find evidence of Jin Mingyao's rape. Chen Tingfang's heart was anxious and in pain. Suddenly, something flashed through her mind. She shouted, Jiang Tianhao. Yes, as long as Jiang Tianhao wakes up, we can prove that Zissou was over-defensive. There was a big difference between over-defensive death and intentional murder when it came to sentencing. First of all, they had to save Yi Zissou's life. Lu Jianfeng frowned. You're right. Jiang Tianhao is a strong witness. The problem is that Jiang Tianhao is Jin Mingyao's accomplice. He has a grudge against Yi Zissou. He's very likely to stand on Jin Yahui's side and testify against Zissou for intentional murder. Chen Tingfang said, we can't care about that now. First, we have to save Jiang Tianhao. If he doesn't wake up, we won't have any hope left. Jiang Tianhao had been stabbed 3 times by Yi Zissou. One was in the lung and the other 2 were in the waist. His lungs had severely shrunk and he was still unconscious. The police had transferred him to the intensive care unit of the People's Hospital. Outside the ward, there were 2 policemen standing guard, worried that an accident might happen. Lu Jianfeng thought for a moment and said, I know a few people in the police force. I'll contact them first and ask them to check the hotel carefully to see if there are any clues that we missed. Cousin, I'll leave the police to you. Cousin, I want to go to the hospital to check on Jiang Tianhao's condition. Even if Jiang Tianhao hadn't woken up yet, it was good to build a good relationship with his mother first. Okay, go ahead. Be careful on the road. If anything happens, contact me immediately. After Chen Tingfang left, Lu Jianfeng dialed a number. Xiao Wang, how are you? I'm old Lu. Oh, it's brother Lu. Long time no see. How have you been? Little Wang, I'm calling you today to talk about this. I have a niece who got into some trouble. Lu Jianfeng briefly explained the situation and made a request. He hoped to get Jin Mingyao's autopsy report. He also hoped that Xiao Wang could send a few team members to ask the hotel staff to see if they could find any new clues. On the other side of the phone, Captain Wang was silent for a moment and said, Brother Lu, this matter is not easy to handle. The higher-ups are guarding it to the death. They don't allow the police to reveal any information about this case. Even I can't get all the case information because of insufficient authority. Lu Jianfeng's face sank. It seems that Jin Yahui has put pressure on the police station. If the other party destroyed the evidence of Jin Mingyao forcing Zissou and fabricated false evidence to prove that Zissou had a relationship with Jiang Tianhao, then things will be troublesome. Zissou will most likely be sentenced to death. Brother Lu, I'm sorry. It's not that I don't want to help you. It's just that my ability is limited. Lu Jianfeng forced a smile. It's okay, Xiao Wang. If you have any information, please let me know. Okay, no problem. If I know anything, I'll definitely let Brother Lu know. Lu Jianfeng contacted a few acquaintances. Everyone said that they couldn't do anything. He pinched his eyebrows. He couldn't believe that he couldn't win against Jin Yahui. If he was transferred to Ying City in the future, wouldn't he be suppressed by Jin Yahui? On one hand, it was Zissou's life. On the other hand, it was his own dignity. He was really unwilling to admit defeat. He paced back and forth in the living room, frowning. Finally, his gloomy eyes turned to a certain point. He suddenly had an idea. He decided to take a risk and catch them off guard. Welfare Song Shu 566. Chapter 9:13. Qin Tingfang bought a lot of fruits and supplements. She asked the chauffeur to take them to the hospital to visit Jiang Tianhao. As soon as she stepped into the ward, Yu Xiu rushed up and shouted at her, "What are you doing here? Get out of here." "Big sister Yu, I'm here to see Tianhao. How is he doing?" Qin Tingfang lowered her stance and asked politely, "Who's your big sister? Get lost, get lost. My son and I don't want to see you. There's no good in your Ji family. The old one killed my husband and the young one came to harm my son." Yu Xiu roared angrily. Her hands were not idle as she pushed Qin Tingfang hard. Qin Tingfang staggered back and almost fell. Qin Tingfang steadied herself with the help of the chauffeur. She took a deep breath and forced a smile. "Big sister, you listen to me. The most important thing now is to wake Tianhao up. It's useless to throw a tantrum now. Let's sit down and have a good talk." When Yu Xiu thought about how her son was still unconscious, her tears fell uncontrollably. She hated Yi Zissu to the core and her scarlet eyes stared fiercely at Qin Tingfang as she cursed, "You little slut raised by a whore, why should I have a good talk with you when you've caused my son to be in such a miserable state? Get out of here right now. I don't want to see you for even a second." Yu Xiu pushed Qin Tingfang out of the ward as she cursed. She threw all the supplements she bought at her and shouted, "Get out! Get out of here!" Many people heard the commotion and ran to the corridor to watch the show. Qin Tingfang was embarrassed to be stared at like a monkey in a circus show. Yu Xiu did not let her go. She pointed at Qin Tingfang's nose and said to the people around her, "Everyone look! This is the mother of the murderer Yi Zissu. Her good daughter not only fooled around with another man, abandoned my son and even wanted to kill him. Qin Tingfang, do you think you can bribe my son with these supplements? Let me tell you, although we're poor, we have integrity. We won't be bribed by you." The onlookers pointed at Qin Tingfang and whispered among themselves. Some of them even talked about Qin Tingfang's past scandals. Yu Xiu received the support of the crowd and scolded even more vigorously. Even the ancestors of the Qin family and Ji family were scolded by her. The police officer in charge went out for lunch. When he came back, he found Yu Xiu cursing at the door of the ward. He scolded her, "What's going on? Is it appropriate for you to curse in the hospital?" Yu Xiu's face was covered in tears and snot. She grabbed the arm of the police officer and complained, "Officer, you have to help me. My son is now unconscious, and this woman came to find trouble with us." Qin Tingfang saw Yu Xiu's ability to throw a tantrum. She had a headache and quickly explained, "Officer, listen to me. I'm not here to make trouble. I want to visit Jiang Tianhao and express my apologies to Madame Yu Xiu." The police officer waved his hand impatiently and shook off Yu Xiu. He said, "Jiang Tianhao is an important witness in the case. We received instructions from our superiors that no one is allowed to visit him except his mother. Madam Qin, please don't come again. Don't make things difficult for us." Qin Tingfang smiled apologetically. "Okay, I understand. Sorry to trouble you, officer." The surrounding crowd started to whisper again. Qin Tingfang's face was about to burn. She quickly instructed the driver to pick up the gifts scattered on the ground and left dejectedly. Just as Qin Tingfang and Lu Jianfeng were thinking of ways to rescue Yi Zissu was being severely interrogated in the detention center. In a pitch-black room, Yi Zissu sat at one end of the table. On the other end, there was an expressionless female interrogator. The interrogator turned the incandescent lamp on the table to Yi Zissu's face. The strong light made her eyes hurt, making it difficult for her to open them. She subconsciously reached out to cover her eyes. The interrogator berated sternly, "Yi Zissu, did you kill Jin Mingyao?" Her voice was like a sharp sword dipped in poison. Yi Zissu's body trembled. She nervously clenched her fingers and said softly, "Yes, but he was the one who raped me. I was only stabbing him out of self-defense." The interrogator slammed her palm on the table and said sternly, "What evidence do you have to prove that he raped you? According to the forensic analysis, the semen in your body belongs to Jiang Tianhao, and Jin Mingyao didn't have sexual relations with you before he died." Yi Zissu said emotionally, "No, that's impossible. There's a problem with the forensic analysis. Jiang Tianhao didn't touch me at all. The person Jiang Tianhao raped was Jin Mingyao and the person Jin Mingyao hurt was me." The interrogator said coldly, "This is slander. You don't have any evidence to prove what you're saying. I advise you to quickly confess the truth and tell us how you committed the crime." Yi Zissu had been interrogated continuously for 24 hours, and the interrogators had changed several times. Since she was arrested, she hadn't closed her eyes or taken a sip of water. Now she could barely open her eyes and her throat was almost smoking. She was about to break down. She shouted hoarsely, "I've already said it many times. Jin Mingyao raped me. I killed him out of self-defense. No matter how many times you interrogate me, my answer will be the same." "Is that so?" The interrogator suddenly sneered. She suddenly stood up and turned off the monitor. She walked up to Yi Zissou and said condescendingly, "It seems that you still don't understand what an interrogation is. I'll make you understand." After that, the interrogator pulled Yi Zissou up from her seat and kicked her hard in the waist, causing her to lie on the ground. Yi Zissou felt that her bones were about to break. She screamed in pain. The interrogator squatted in front of her and pinched her chin with her fingers, forcing her to look up. She said coldly, "If you don't want to suffer, then tell the truth. The reason you killed Jin Mingyao was that he found out that you were having an affair with Jiang Tianhao." Yi Zissou's eyes were full of hatred. She said angrily, "You're forcing a confession. I want to file a complaint. I want to see my lawyer." The interrogator laughed as if she had heard a funny joke. "File a complaint? See your lawyer? Miss, you're really naive. If you don't confess your crimes, don't even think about going anywhere. You can't do this to me. My uncle is Lu Jianfeng. He won't let you off. Oh, I'm so scared. He's a high-ranking official in Hanqing. But I'm just doing things according to the law. What can he do to me?" "You," the interrogator's expression changed. She suddenly said sternly, "Yi Zissou, hurry up and confess. Why did you kill Jin Mingyao? Did he find out about your affair with Jiang Tianhao?" "No." Another round of interrogation began. Yi Zissou experienced a series of cruel treatments such as being beaten, interrogated, splashed with cold water, interrogated, electrocuted, interrogated, and so on. Her consciousness became more and more blurred. Her body was tormented by fatigue and pain. Her spirit was almost at its limit. But no matter how she was treated, she only had one answer. No. No. She had to persevere to have a chance of survival. It was late at night. This was destined to be a difficult night to sleep. In the dark room, it was so quiet that not a sound could be heard. The person wrapped in the quilt curled up into a ball and was entangled in a nightmare. "Jingjing, happy birthday. This is my sister Yuqi. Sister Yuqi, it's nice to meet you." In the dream, there were people whispering in Yuqi's ear. Some were laughing and some were singing happy birthday songs. It was noisy and lively. Suddenly, roses in full bloom appeared in front of her eyes. She heard the devil's voice. "Only this delicate red rose is worthy of your beauty." Many people toasted her. She knew them and didn't know them. She couldn't refuse. Her head was dizzy as she lay in Yi Zissou's arms. She heard Yi Zissou's muffled laughter. "Ah, we're all drunk. Who's going to send us home?" She was carried up in a broad embrace and a warm breath. She leaned in his arms and murmured, "Hubby, my head hurts. I want to go home." "Okay, let's go home." Jiang Tianhao's enlarged handsome face suddenly appeared in front of her eyes. She hugged him in relief, but in the next second, that face suddenly turned into Jin Mingyao's. Jin Mingyao pressed her under his body, a wretched smile on his face. "Beauty, I've liked you for a long time. Just give in to me." She struggled in fear. He grabbed her hand with one hand and tore at her clothes with the other. She cried in fear, kicking and biting, refusing to let him near her. He slapped her so hard that she almost fainted. She gasped weakly, and he took the opportunity to tear off the last of her clothes. She gritted her teeth and used all her strength to kick him away. She threw herself onto the floor in a panic, trying to escape from his evil clutches. She ran for her life, but when she ran into the living room, he hugged her waist from behind and dragged her onto the carpet. He used all his strength to pry her legs apart. She fumbled around unwillingly and finally found a fruit knife on the coffee table. She raised the knife and ruthlessly stabbed it into his chest. Fresh blood spurted out from the wound like warm rain, staining her entire body. She covered her face in fear and cried out loud. She had killed someone. She hid in a corner in fear, trembling. She didn't know what to do. She didn't dare to call Jiang Tianhao because she didn't want to cause trouble for him. She didn't know how long she had been crying. Just when she was so afraid and desperate that she didn't know what to do, her phone rang. She hugged the phone and wailed. Shinja's anxious voice came from the phone. "Yuqi, what happened? Where are you?" "I killed someone. Shinja. I'm so scared. I don't know what to do. I didn't do it on purpose." In the hotel room, Shinja hugged her, who was covered in blood, and held her face in his hands. Attention Xingwu 799. Chapter 9:14. His dull eyes gazed at her face as he said gently, "Chi-Chi, don't be afraid. I'm here." In the prison visitation room, Shinja's hands were cuffed. He had a gentle smile on his face as he said, "Chi-Chi, don't be afraid. I was the one who killed her. Don't feel guilty. Don't feel burdened. Live happily, my Chi-Chi." Through the glass window he said, "Chi-Chi, if you don't love Jiang Tianhao anymore, can you love me?" She bawled and turned herself in at the police station. No one believed her because Shinja had already created perfect evidence to prove that he was the real murderer. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison for manslaughter. The CEO of the Shin Group was reduced to a prisoner because of her. And she was still living in the beautiful dream that Jiang Tianhao had woven for her. When she woke up from the dream, Jiuqi's face was already covered in tears. She bit the back of her hand and cried bitterly. This nightmare was a replay of what had happened to her in her previous life. It dug out the most painful wound in her heart and showed it to her. She had hurt Shinja once again. The thing that she could not forgive herself for the most was that she had failed to stop Shinja from taking the blame for her. Suddenly she really wanted to see him. She did not care about anything else and ran downstairs as fast as she could. In the middle of the night, she drove to his villa. When Shinja was awakened by the knocking on the door, he could not believe his eyes. Was this extremely pathetic little woman in front of him his Chi-Chi? Her curly hair was messy and draped over her shoulders. Her face was covered in tears and she was wearing thin pajamas. She had a furry slipper on her right foot and the other foot was bare. When she saw him, her eyes immediately filled with tears. Big drops of tears fell down her face as she suddenly threw herself into his arms. He quickly hugged her tightly, lifted her up from the ground and put her on the bed. He crawled under the blanket and held her in his arms. His hands rubbed against her arms to warm her up. When her body slowly warmed up and stopped trembling, he kissed her eyes and said gently, "Chi-Chi, what happened?" Before seeing him, she had a lot of things she wanted to say to him, but when she was in his arms, she didn't know where to start. Hearing his strong heartbeat and smelling his familiar scent, her nose turned sour and her tears fell uncontrollably. She wrapped her hands around his neck and kissed his lips. Bitter tears spread between their lips and tongues. He lovingly kissed away the tears on her face and whispered, "Chi-Chi, no matter what happens, I will always be by your side, so don't be afraid." Her eyes were filled with tears, and her heart was filled with warmth. After a long time, she leaned into his embrace and said softly, "Aja, do you believe in reincarnation?" Shinja rubbed his chin against her hair and said gently, "If reincarnation really exists, I will definitely follow you forever. No matter where you go, I will find you." Jiuqi looked up and stared into his eyes seriously. "Then I will definitely wait for you. I will wait for you to find me." She was willing to believe that her previous life was just a reincarnation. When she died, that reincarnation would disappear. That way Shinja wouldn't have to wait so hopelessly. He smiled and scratched her nose. "Okay, let's agree. Before I come, you are not allowed to love anyone else. Okay. Never again." Never again would she fall in love with another man before waiting for him. If he didn't appear, she would go and find him. She would never leave him for eternity. That night, she slept soundly in his arms. She did not have any nightmares and they slept all the way until dawn. "Good morning, baby." When she opened her eyes, she saw Shinja's smiling eyes. He gave her a passionate morning kiss. She pushed him away shyly. "Don't. I haven't washed up yet. Don't be afraid. Let's kiss first." He kissed her lips and murmured. After the tender moment, he helped her get a change of clothes. He patted her head and smiled gently. "Baby, quickly come downstairs after you're done washing up. I'll let you see my handiwork." "Okay." Jiuqi smiled happily and sat up. As she was putting on her shoes, she saw a pair of brand new slippers. She couldn't help but think of her sorry state last night and the slippers she had lost at some point. Her cheeks burned and she quickly put on her shoes. Then, without looking at Shinja, she ran into the bathroom like a wisp of smoke. Shinja looked at the little woman who ran away in a hurry like a frightened rabbit. He shook his head in amusement and bent down to pick up the change of clothes. He walked briskly to the bathroom door and gently knocked. He chuckled and said, "Chi-Chi, you forgot to take your clothes." Jiuqi opened the door and reached out to take the clothes. She stuck out her tongue embarrassedly. "Thank you. Silly little thing." Shinja smiled and rubbed her hair. "Go on. I'll wait for you downstairs." The morning sun shone through the huge glass wall and shone into the clean dining room. The two of them sat at a long European-style dining table. On the table was a Western-style breakfast with ham, fried eggs, toast, mellow milk, and an exquisite fruit cake. The atmosphere was very warm. They ate elegantly and occasionally whispered a few words. Both of them had a warm smile on their faces. They were like an old couple who had been together for many years and were full of tacit understanding. After the beautiful breakfast time, Jiuchi took advantage of the warm atmosphere to confess to Shinja what she had done. After hearing her words, Shinja's handsome face turned as red as the bottom of a pot. He gritted his teeth and said, "You knew that Jiang Tianhao and Yi Zissou were trying to harm you, but you still went with Yi Zissou to the birthday party?" Shigegai nodded. "Yes." He glared at her and said fiercely, "What did you promise me? You won't put yourself in danger again. Did you even take my words to heart?" She tugged at his sleeve pitifully. "Aja, don't be angry. I'll be fine. I already knew about their tricks, so I beat them at their own game. Otherwise I wouldn't have put myself at risk. Besides, Qingsang has been secretly protecting me. No one can hurt me." That night, she pretended to be drunk and was taken to the hotel by Yi Zissou. After she knocked Jiang Tianhao out, she fed him medicine and stuffed him under the bed. Then she put the fruit knife on the bedside table and asked Qingsang to help install the surveillance cameras and design all the links. This led to the tragedy of Broken Chrysanthemum, full of wounds, and led Yi Zissou to the path of crime. Shenja pinched her cheek fiercely and said through gritted teeth, "One day I'll be angered to death by you. Can't you be a little more obedient?" Jiuchi hugged his neck and said coquettishly, "Aja, after I deal with those people, I'll listen to you and won't mess around anymore." He hugged her and smiled bitterly. "Why do I feel like I'm raising a daughter? A rebellious daughter and a troubled father. Chi-Chi, your father must be having a hard time." He didn't dare to imagine what would happen if her plan went wrong and those bastards hurt her. He really couldn't let his guard down for a moment. He had to watch over her all the time in the future. "Asha, I love you." Jiuchi held his cheeks and said sweet words shamelessly to divert his attention. Her beautiful eyes looked at him expectantly. Her beautiful cheeks were tinged with a faint blush. She was acting coquettishly. Even if his heart was made of stone, it had already melted. However, he still hardened his heart and said, "It's useless to say that I love you. I'm still angry." "Aja, I love you." She climbed on top of him and kissed his cold lips with a pout. Seeing that his face was still dark, she continued to kiss him. Every time she kissed him, she would say, "I love you," and she would say it in a different language. English, Japanese, Korean, Italian. In order to please young Master Shin, Jiuchi racked her brains and said all the languages she knew. In the end, Shinja finally lost to her. He kissed her fiercely and planted strawberries all over her neck. With a dark face he said, "Do you still dare to do it in the future?" She grabbed the clothes in front of his chest and blinked pitifully. "I don't dare anymore." Shinja ruffled her hair hard and finally let her go. Although Shinja said that he was angry, he was already thinking about how to deal with the aftermath. The two of them analyzed the situation and felt that even if Jiang Tianhao woke up, he would not implicate Yuchi in order to protect himself. Otherwise, he would have an additional charge of seduction and rape. Therefore, in order to clear his name, he would most likely stand on Jin Yahue's side and admit that he had an affair with Yi Zissou. He would also testify that Yi Zissou had deliberately killed Jin Mingyao. Yi Zissou had Lu Jianfeng's support. In the end, a simple murder case would turn into a power struggle between Lu Jianfeng and Jin Yahue. What they needed to do now was to intensify the conflict between Lu Jianfeng and Jin Yahue. They needed to make them fight and both sides suffer. Jiuchi took out a USB flash drive from her handbag and handed it to Shinja. "This is the surveillance video of Yi Zissou killing Jin Mingyao. Ahem, the content is heavy, please be careful." Shinja glanced at her and inserted the USB flash drive into the computer expressionlessly. Not long after, the room was filled with moans. After a while, Jiang Tianhao suddenly got up from under the bed and threw himself on Jin Mingyao's body to do some thrusting. Shinja turned to look at Jiuchi. Jiuchi quickly covered her eyes with both hands to show that she did not see anything. He turned his head again and watched the video expressionlessly. He completely regarded it as a violent and erotic horror movie. After watching it, he said in a calm voice, "Don't do this kind of thing in the future. Be careful not to get a needle eye." Jiuchi quickly raised her hand. "I pressed the fast-forward button. I didn't see anything clearly. It's true." Shinja nodded non-committally. "With this evidence, we can at least save Yi Zissou's life. Whether it's Lu Jianfeng or Jin Yahue, if they know of its existence they will get it at all costs." Jiuchi touched her chin with her right hand and smiled maliciously. "Then let them fight. It's best if they fight until they bleed." Attention Hongcha 866. Chapter 9:15. Just as the police were extorting a confession from Yi Zissou, the situation suddenly took a turn. Someone anonymously called the TV station and said that he lived in the building opposite the hotel and saw the incident with his binoculars. Yi Zissou was actually knocked out by Jiang Tianhao and then raped by Jin Mingyao. After that, Jiang Tianhao raped Jin Mingyao. This statement was simply too shocking. Even if the TV station was ordered by the higher-ups to not broadcast any news that went against Jin Mingyao's reputation, there were still a few bold people who spread this shocking news on the internet. The power of the netizens was very strong. In just one night, this news was pushed to the headlines. Many netizens stood up to support Yi Zissou and believed that she was indeed raped and killed because of excessive self-defense. There were also people who revealed that Jin Mingyao was a womanizer and had improper relationships with many women. They even said that he had once raped an underage prostitute. There were even people who questioned why the mainstream media did not objectively report the murder case and instead stood on Jin Mingyao's side. That person sharply pointed out that there was only one answer, and that was Jin Mingyao's father, Jin Yahue, who was manipulating things behind the scenes. Jin Yahue abused his power for personal gain and was unworthy of the title, public servant. As the matter blew up, Jin Yahue was pushed into the limelight. On the other hand, Yi Zissou's backer, Lu Jianfeng, remained silent and almost made people forget about his existence. Chen Tingfang looked at the heated discussion on the internet and said uneasily, "Cousin, is this really going to work?" The mainstream media still did not speak up for Zissou. Will Jin Yahue continue to suppress news that is unfavorable to Jin Mingyao? Lu Jianfeng said in a deep voice, "Of course this is not enough. Next, I will take out evidence of Jin Yahue abusing his power for personal gain and bending the law for personal gain. I will let the higher-ups notice him and investigate his background. Let's see how long he can be arrogant." Having been in the officialdom for many years, Lu Jianfeng naturally had some connections. He went around collecting evidence of Jin Yahue's crimes, wanting to pull him down. This way, Jin Yahue would no longer be able to interfere with Zissou's case. Although the method was a little roundabout, it was the most effective. Recently, Jin Yahue had been overwhelmed by the news on the internet. He guessed that someone was adding fuel to the fire behind the scenes, trying to oust him from his position. However, he couldn't back down. If he backed down, his dead son would have to bear the infamy. He had to make Yi Zissou pay for his son's life. He asked his subordinates to contact all the major websites and asked them to quickly delete those unfavorable comments about him. He also called his former leaders to explain the whole story and said that he was absolutely innocent to gain their support. Just as he was getting tired of dealing with them, he received a mysterious email. The content of the email was very brief. "I'm an eyewitness. I know the whole truth." Jin Yahue's expression changed and he immediately replied, "Why should I believe you?" About 10 minutes later, the other party sent an email with no content, only a video. He clicked on the video. The playback wasn't smooth and it was very choppy. However, he could clearly see that it was indeed his son raping Yi Zissou. Halfway through the video, a man suddenly popped out from under the bed. At this moment he suddenly heard a click and the video turned pitch black. No matter what he did, he couldn't continue playing the video. What happened after that? Jin Yahue's mind was full of questions. Even though he knew that the other party was deliberately baiting him, he still replied, "Who are you? What's your motive?" This time the other party replied very quickly, "It's very simple. I want you to let Yi Zissou off." Jin Yahue frowned and his mind raced. If the other party wanted to let Yi Zissou off, then he must be someone who knew Yi Zissou. Ji Bowen was just a businessman and Yi Zissou was his stepdaughter. He wouldn't go to such lengths for her. Could it be Yi Zissou's uncle, Lu Jianfeng? Jin Yahue connected the dots and thought about it seriously. Suddenly, everything became clear. According to the gossip from his colleagues, Lu Jianfeng was about to be sent to Ying City. That meant that he had a reason to target him. Firstly, he wanted to save Yi Zissou. Secondly, he wanted to pave the way for him to come to Ying City and get rid of him. He gritted his teeth and replied, "Are you the one who targeted me on the internet?" After waiting for nearly half an hour, the other party slowly replied with 2 words, "No. No? Of course not. It must have been him." Jin Yahue had already assumed that the person on the other end of the computer was Lu Jianfeng. He quickly typed, "Change your condition. I can give you anything you want." The other party replied, "Haha, it seems like you don't have the sincerity to negotiate with me. Then let this video go viral. Aren't you curious about what happened after the video?" What happened after the video? Could it be that the rumors on the internet were true? That Jiang Tianhao had raped his son? That was simply unbelievable. However, if that was the case and the video was leaked, his son would die without dignity. How could he, as an official, show his face? Jianghu's face was ashen. He hesitated for a long time before replying, "Let me think about it." The other party replied quickly, "Okay, 2 days. After 2 days, I will let you and your son's reputation fall to rock bottom. Lu Jianfeng, you and I are irreconcilable." Jianghu was furious. He slammed his palm on the table, causing the cup on the table to fall to the ground and shatter into pieces. What Jianghu didn't know was that when he opened the other party's email, the complete video of the rape had been injected into his computer by a virus and stored on the E-drive. On the other side, Chen Tingfang also received an email. There was also an incomplete video in the email. The person who sent the email wrote, "I found this video when I was helping someone repair their computer. I was shocked at the time, so I secretly saved it. Unfortunately, the video was injected with a virus. Halfway through the video it will be automatically destroyed. Even I can't restore it. After I found out the truth, I was very hesitant. I didn't know if I should stand up for you. However, when I thought of an innocent woman being raped, falsely accused, and even sentenced to death, my conscience was condemned. I couldn't stay silent anymore, so I sent the video to you. I hope you can help Miss Yi." Chen Tingfang's body trembled as she watched the video. She watched her daughter being humiliated with her own eyes, but she couldn't do anything to save her. Her heart ached like it was being stabbed by a knife. Her fingers trembled as she replied to the email, "I am very grateful that you sent this evidence to me. May I ask, who did you see it when you were helping repair their computer?" She waited until the evening before the person replied, "That person is too powerful. I don't dare to be his enemy. I'm just an ordinary citizen. This is all I can do. I'm sorry." "It doesn't matter. I'm still very grateful to you." Chen Tingfang's whole body leaned on the soft chair. Her eyes stared blankly at the computer screen. In her heart, she already had the answer. Must be Jianghu. After Lu Jianfeng learned about this matter, he said decisively. Chen Tingfang looked tired. "I guessed it was him. If the evidence is in his hands, then it will be troublesome. He will definitely destroy it." Lu Jianfeng's face was calm. His fingers gently tapped the back of the chair and said, "Even if there is only a glimmer of hope, we can't give up." Chen Tingfang hurriedly asked, "Cousin, do you have any good ideas?" "I know a very powerful hacker. Let him hack into Jianghu's computer and see if he can find the complete video." Lu Jianfeng frowned slightly. Actually, there was another way, and that was to hack into Jianghu's home to look for possible evidence. However, the risk was too great. If the matter was exposed and he was implicated, then his career would be over. Just as Lu Jianfeng was thinking of a way to deal with Jianghu, news came from the hospital that Jiang Tianhao had regained consciousness. This news immediately caused a sensation. Many media reporters blocked the entrance of the hospital, wanting to interview Jiang Tianhao. However, they were all stopped by the police guarding him outside the door. The criminal police in charge of the case also rushed to the hospital immediately to ask about the case. Jiang Tianhao was still very weak. His face was as pale as a sheet of paper. After he woke up, he found out about the progress of the case from Wuxia. He immediately chose the statement that was most beneficial to him. Facing the police officer who was taking down his statement, he slowly said, "On the night of the incident, Yizisu asked me to meet and said that she wanted to talk to me. After all, we were husband and wife, so I agreed. When I rushed to the hotel, I found that she seemed to be drunk. She hugged me and refused to let go. She even said that she wanted to remarry me. I couldn't control myself and had sex with her." The police officer asked, "When you had sex with her, did you know that she was dating Jin Mingyao?" The police officer's words were very tempting. Jiang Tianhao followed his direction and replied, "I didn't know. She didn't mention it to me." "What happened after that?" "When we were having sex, Jin Mingyao suddenly appeared. He scolded Yizisu and said that she was AB***. He said that she was already in a relationship with him and was still seducing another man. I was stunned at the time and didn't know what was going on. Yizisu suddenly jumped up and got into an argument with Jin Mingyao. Jin Mingyao slapped Yizisu. Yizisu grabbed a fruit knife from the bedside table and stabbed Jin Mingyao in the back. I was scared out of my wits and wanted to separate them. When I ran up to stop them, Yizisu suddenly stabbed me with the knife. After that, I fainted." "Did you see Yizisu kill Jin Mingyao with your own eyes?" "I saw her stab him many times, but I wasn't sure if he was still breathing because at that time, I was already unconscious." The police officer asked a few more questions, and Jiang Tianhao answered them one by one. In short, not only did he clear his name, but he also cleared the suspicion of Jin Mingyao's rape and pushed all the blame onto Yi Zissou. Beauty novel Songshu 566. Chapter 9:16. With Jiang Tianhao's testimony, Jin Yahue heaved a sigh of relief. But at the same time he was worried about the video. If the video were to be leaked, all his efforts would have been in vain. Did he really have to let Yi Zissou go? He couldn't take it lying down. Jin Yahue was hesitant and extremely annoyed. Lu Jianfeng had already bribed a hacker to hack into Jin Yahue's computer. Sure enough, he found the video on his computer as well as some evidence of his corruption. Lu Jianfeng was extremely excited. He sorted out the evidence he had collected, wrote a report letter, and mailed it to the relevant department anonymously. Also, he asked Chen Tingfang to contact Jin Yahue directly and threaten him with the video to let Yi Zissou go. Over the phone, Chen Tingfang went straight to the point. Mr. Jin, we all know the truth about my daughter killing your son. I don't want to blow things up, so I'm giving you one last chance. Let my daughter go. Otherwise, I don't mind fighting to the death. Jin Yahue said coldly, so it was you who used the email to threaten me? If I listen to your arrangements and let Yi Zissou go, what if you go back on your words and spread the video, ruining my son's reputation? Chen Tingfang didn't understand what he meant by his first sentence, but when she heard what he said next, she couldn't help but sneer. Mr. Jin, are you joking? Even if my daughter was overly defensive, she still killed someone. She'll be in jail for at least a few years. You're so resourceful that it's easy for you to make her die quietly in jail. Since my daughter is in your hands, how would I dare to act rashly and spread the video? So, not only could the video be used to threaten Jin Yahue, it was also Zissou's amulet. Chen Tingfang had to make good use of it. Jin Yahue gritted his teeth and said with a sullen face, "You're right. If you dare to go back on your words, I won't let you off. Don't worry, I'm not that stupid. My daughter is still suffering in the detention center. I want you to clear her name as soon as possible. I'll deal with it as soon as possible. Remember your promise." In the end, Jin Yahue compromised. However, he was a petty person, so he had already thought of a way to take revenge on Lu Jianfeng. For the past few days, the people of Ying City saw the news of Yi Zissou killing people when they opened their eyes. When they closed their eyes, they still heard the same news. However, the content had changed drastically. Jiang Tianhao finally admitted that in order to bribe Jin Mingyao, he had deliberately sent Yi Zissou to Jin Mingyao's room. Furthermore, he had personally witnessed Jin Mingyao sexually assaulting Yi Zissou. Afterwards, Yi Zissou had fought back and over-defended herself, killing Jin Mingyao and injuring him. Yu Xiu couldn't even raise her head. She didn't even dare to step out of her house. Yi Zissou was finally released from the little black room. The dark interrogation and 7 days of torture had caused her body to become thin and haggard. She was like a withered rose, completely devoid of life. When Chen Tingfang saw Yi Zissou in the reception room, she almost couldn't recognize her. She was sitting in front of the thick glass in a daze like a puppet. Her pale face still had scars that hadn't healed. It was obvious that she had been violently treated in the detention center. Chen Tingfang's heart ached so much that tears streamed down her face. After calling her name a few times, she finally looked up at Chen Tingfang and called out in a daze, "Mom?" Chen Tingfang's tears fell even more fiercely. She reached out her hand and pressed it against the glass. She forced out an ugly smile to comfort her. "Zissou, don't be afraid. You'll be fine. Mom and Uncle are trying to think of a way for you." Yi Zissou saw a familiar yet unfamiliar face through the glass. That face was covered in tears and she was crying so sadly. When she was being tortured in the little black room, every time she couldn't hold on, she would think of her mother. She would think of her mother's promise that she would get her out. She would then muster up her courage again. Yi Zissou didn't dare to recall those dark days. She slowly reached out her right hand and pressed it against Chen Tingfang's hand. She said in tears, "Mom, I'm sorry. I was wrong in the past. I won't go against you again. Mom, I love you." Chen Tingfang burst into tears. "Zissou, Mom loves you too. You'll be fine. You must hold on. Mom, don't cry." Yi Zissou reached out her hand and wanted to wipe the tears from her face. However, she couldn't touch her face through the glass. Chen Tingfang's heart ached when she saw this. She cried even more sadly. "Mom, don't cry. If you cry again, your eyes will swell." Yi Zissou wanted to laugh, but more tears fell. "Mom, when I get out, I will be filial to you. Mom, if you're not happy now, divorce Uncle Ji. Don't fight anymore." After this, Yi Zissou completely thought it through. No matter how much money she had, she couldn't bring it with her when she was born, and she couldn't bring it with her when she died. It was better to live happily. Unfortunately, she understood it too late. What awaited her was a few years of prison life. In the end, Yi Zissou was sentenced to 5 years in prison for excessive self-defense and murder. Jiang Tianhao was an accomplice to the rape and was also sentenced to 5 years in prison. After Yi Zissou was transferred to the women's prison, Ji Bowen visited her and told her to reform herself and turn over a new leaf. Yi Zissou was both grateful and guilty. Her eyes reddened as she said, "Uncle Ji, I've done a lot of wrong things in the past. I'm really grateful that you're still willing to visit me. I wrote this letter to Sister Yuchi. Please help me pass it to her." It was a letter of apology. It could be said that it was written with sincerity, making those who read it cry and those who read it feel sad. However, Yuchi read it expressionlessly and didn't say anything. She directly threw it into the trash can. Without saying a word, she turned around and went upstairs. Just as she took a step, her tears fell. She clenched her fists tightly and said in her heart, "My baby, Mom has finally avenged you. That evil woman who harmed your life has finally received the punishment she deserves." Ji Bowen looked at his daughter's lonely and proud back view and sighed helplessly. Some injuries left scars that could never be healed. Lu Jianfeng used a business trip as an excuse to rush from Hanqing to Ying City to deal with Yi Zissou's case. After her case was settled, it was time for him to return to Hanqing. When Qin Tingfang sent him to the car, he looked at her deeply with a hint of reluctance hidden in the depths of his eyes. In the end, he raised his hand and stroked the hair by her ear just like he did when he was younger. His fingers inadvertently brushed against her cheek, and his deep voice had a different kind of warmth. "Tingfang, I'm leaving. Take care of yourself." Qin Tingfang smiled and said reluctantly, "Okay, you take care too. Cousin, I don't know when I'll see you again." Lu Jianfeng couldn't help but hug her and whispered, "Soon. When I'm transferred to Ying City, you'll be able to see me anytime." She patted his waist gently with her right hand and smiled. "Okay, I'll be waiting for you. Cousin, be careful on the road." The woman in his arms was already old. She wasn't as young and beautiful as she was when she was young, but in Lu Jianfeng's eyes she would always be the little girl in his arms. He tightened his arms and slowly let go of her. In a gentle voice he said, "Zissou is right. If you're not happy, divorce Ji Bowen. I can still afford to raise you." Qin Tingfang pouted coquettishly. "I'm already the child's mother. How can I let cousin raise me and become a joke to others?" Lu Jianfeng's deep eyes gazed into her eyes. His lips moved slightly, but in the end he didn't say anything. He only pressed his broad palm on her head and said in a low voice, "I'm leaving. Take care." The car slowly drove out of the Ji residence. Qin Tingfang stood at the gate of the courtyard and looked in the direction of the car. She smiled faintly. After Lu Jianfeng got into the car, he leaned against the back of the seat and closed his eyes to rest. The car sped along and soon drove up the mountain road. He felt that the car was getting faster and faster and he felt uncomfortable. He opened his eyes and looked at the driver in the front seat. He said lightly, "Xiaoyang, drive slower." Xiaoyang's forehead was covered in cold sweat. He looked at Lu Jianfeng through the rearview mirror and said nervously, "Minister Lu, the car's brakes are broken." Lu Jianfeng's heart tightened. He quickly straightened his body and said in a deep voice, "Don't panic. Stay calm. Pay attention to the road ahead and control the steering wheel." Xiaoyang was an experienced driver who had been with him for 3 years. If even he was panicking, it meant that the situation was very dangerous. Sure enough, Xiaoyang gritted his teeth and said, "I've already tried to reduce the speed but it didn't work. If it really doesn't work, we can only rely on friction to reduce the speed of the car. Minister, sit tight." Lu Jianfeng nodded. "Okay, don't be nervous. You can do it." Just as he finished speaking, a truck came out of the fork in the road and rushed towards their car. Xiaoyang watched as it drove into their lane. Xiaoyang nervously honked the horn. The truck continued to drive as it got closer and closer. Xiaoyang made a prompt decision and turned the steering wheel to the side of the road. Who knew that the truck would also turn into the lane? Seeing that the two cars were about to collide, Xiaoyang turned the steering wheel again. The car was like a divine dragon swaying its tail. With a violent inertia, it slammed into the side of the road. There was no control of the brakes. After hitting the green belt, it crashed into the fence behind it. The loud sound of the collision echoed in the empty valley. The front of the car was smashed into the green belt and was dented. It was hard to imagine the situation of the people sitting in the car. The truck driver saw that the situation was bad and had already driven away. In the narrow car, after the windshield was smashed, the debris scattered everywhere. Xiao Yang's body was covered in cuts and blood. He hung his head and leaned against the back of the seat, motionless. No one knew if he was dead or alive. Lu Jianfeng, who was sitting in the back, had his arms and legs cut by the glass. At the same time, his head hit the front seat and was in a semi-conscious state. He struggled to open his eyes and called out Xiao Yang's name with a hoarse voice. There was no response for a long time. In the end, he struggled to take out his phone and called the emergency number. Attention Jianghu 799. Chapter 917. Director Jean, I've already gotten someone to do what you've instructed. It's done cleanly and there won't be any traces left behind. Jianghu chuckled. Very good, little Li. With you in charge, I'm assured. The person on the other end of the phone tried to curry favor with him before hesitantly asking, what about the bid for the land in the east of the city? Don't worry, I'll handle it. Alright, that's all. I have a meeting now. Alright, Director Jean. You're busy. Jianghu hung up the phone. Under his smiling eyes, there was a hidden cold hatred. He purposely got someone to create a car accident. Even if he couldn't kill Lu Jianfeng, he would at least cripple him. A series of knocks on the door interrupted his reverie. Two men in black suits walked in expressionlessly. Jianghu, someone reported you for corruption and bribery. Please come with us for investigation. Jianghu's heart thumped. He immediately smiled and said, the two of you, are you mistaken? How could I possibly do such a thing? Is there a mistake? Please come with us to the Commission for Discipline Inspection. The two men showed no mercy as they walked to his left and right to prevent him from running away. Jianghu's face was ashen. Would he be able to walk out safely after entering the Commission for Discipline Inspection? Just as Lu Jianfeng had planned, Jianghu was interrogated. As for himself, he was also attacked by Jianghu. He suffered a slight concussion, a broken arm, and a serious cut on his leg. He would have to be hospitalized for at least half a month. His driver, Little Wang, was seriously injured. He was lying unconscious in the ICU, and no one knew if he could wake up. When Chen Tingfang found out that he was in a car accident, she immediately rushed to the People's Hospital. When she saw the man wrapped up like a mummy on the bed, she couldn't help but cry. Cousin, it's all my fault. If I didn't ask you to come to Ying City, you wouldn't have gotten into a car accident. Lu Jianfeng really wanted to wipe away her tears, but Ji Bowen was also present. He only raised his hand slightly and comforted her. Tingfang, don't blame yourself. No one can say for sure whether it's a natural or man-made disaster. My injuries aren't that serious and I'll get better soon. Ji Bowen patted Qin Tingfang's shoulder to comfort her. Qin Tingfang said with reddened eyes, Cousin, have you informed cousin-in-law about your injury? Not yet. You know how hot-tempered she is. I'm afraid that she and Lil Hao will be worried. I plan to wait until my injuries are better before informing her. That's good too. Lil Hao is about to take the college entrance exam. At this critical juncture, it's best not to distract him. Qin Tingfang picked up an apple and said while peeling it, Cousin, I've been taking care of you in the hospital these days. Whatever you need or want to eat, just tell me. Don't be shy. Lu Jianfeng gently smiled. Just hire a caretaker. Bowen will have an opinion if you take care of me personally. Ji Bowen smiled. Department head Lu, you must be joking. You're Tingfang's cousin, which means that you're my cousin as well. How can I have an opinion if she takes care of you? Lu Jianfeng joked. You're still saying that you don't have an opinion? We're family, so why are you being so polite and calling me department head Lu? Ji Bowen awkwardly smiled. I'm used to it. I haven't changed it yet. Please don't take it to heart. The three of them chatted for a while and tacitly did not mention anything about the past. The atmosphere was still harmonious. Half an hour later, Ji Bowen had something to do in the company and left first. Qin Tingfang went home to make soup for Lu Jianfeng and also left. Lu Jianfeng was the only one left in the huge ward, which made him feel a little lonely. He stared at the ceiling and sighed heavily as he thought of something. Lu Jianfeng's right hand was fractured and covered in a thick cast. He couldn't eat and wanted to use his left hand. Qin Tingfang rebuked, It's inconvenient to eat with your left hand. Let me feed you. An uncomfortable expression appeared on his handsome face. He coughed and said, That's not good. I'll do it myself. As he spoke, he picked up the spoon with his left hand and awkwardly scooped up a spoonful of rice. Qin Tingfang quickly snatched the spoon from his hand. You're my cousin. What's there to be embarrassed about? Let me feed you. She sat beside him and brought the spoon to his mouth. She smiled. Come, open your mouth. Lu Jianfeng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Her tone sounded like she was coaxing a child. Although he felt a little uncomfortable, he still held the spoon and swallowed the mouthful of rice. The two of them were very close. He could clearly smell the faint fragrance on her body. She fed him spoonful by spoonful and wiped the corners of his mouth with a tissue from time to time. Her expression was very gentle and her gaze was very focused. Lu Jianfeng's muscles gradually tightened and a complicated emotion flashed across his deep eyes. After finishing the bowl of rice, his back was drenched in sweat. Chen Tingfang saw the sweat on his forehead and naturally touched it with her finger. She said softly, "Cousin, why are you sweating? I'll get some hot water to help you wipe it." Lu Jianfeng pressed her hand and said in a dry voice, "No need. You've been out for a long time. Go back early." Chen Tingfang's expression darkened and her tone was bleak. "There's nothing to do even if I go back. Facing the empty big house, there's no one to talk to. Zissou isn't here either. Just thinking about it makes me sad. It's better to stay here and accompany cousin." There was a hint of heartache in his eyes and he tightened his grip on her hand. "Since you're unhappy, why do you have to suffer?" She smiled bitterly and shook her head. "Cousin, I'm not willing to give up just like that. I've worked so hard for him for so many years, and I have nothing to say if I can't compare to his dead wife. However, I can't even compare to his child. He only treats me as a nanny of the Ji family. He only said that I'm heartless and hurt his child, but why didn't he ask me why I became like this? It's all Ji Bowen's fault." The heartache in his eyes deepened, and he couldn't help but reach out to stroke the hair by her ear. Just like when they were young, whenever she was wronged, he would silently sit by her side. He didn't say any comforting words, but just quietly accompanied her. Her eyes were sore and she almost cried. She quickly stood up and turned her back. "I'll get a basin of hot water." When she returned with hot water, there was already a faint smile on her face. She wet the towel in the hot water, wrung it dry and carefully wiped his cheeks. Her extremely gentle action was like a feather, causing ripples in the deep lake of his heart. During this period, Chen Tingfang would personally cook every day, make soup, cook, and send it to the hospital personally to take care of Lu Jianfeng. With Lu Jianfeng's comfort, her mood was much better. Occasionally, she would make soup in the kitchen and hum a little song that she liked when she was young. Today, she was carrying a box of food and was about to go out when an angry voice came from outside. "Let go of me. Let go of me. I want to see that bitch Chen Tingfang." Chen Tingfang's eyes narrowed and she snorted. It was Wuxia. She clearly remembered how Wuxia humiliated her in the hospital. She didn't settle the score with her, but she actually came knocking on her door. She really deserved it. Chen Tingfang put the box of food on the table and quickly walked to the door. Her face darkened and her sharp gaze swept across the three people in front of her. Two security guards grabbed Wuxia's arms on both sides. They hadn't seen her for more than 10 days and half of her hair had turned white. She was like a shrew, throwing a tantrum and kicking the two security guards. When she saw Chen Tingfang, she stopped kicking and roared angrily, "Chen Tingfang, return my son to me." Chen Tingfang ignored her and shouted at the security guards, "How are you doing your job? How dare you let outsiders into the villa?" The two security guards apologized profusely, "We're sorry, Mrs. G. This woman broke in when we weren't paying attention. We'll take her away immediately." Wuxia struggled and screamed, "Chen Tingfang, you bitch. You'll die a horrible death. My son is innocent. Hurry up and let him go," she cursed loudly. Chen Tingfang's face became uglier and uglier. She suddenly shouted, "You two let her go first." The security guards were in a dilemma. "Mrs. G, this woman is crazy. What if she does something? It's okay. Let her go first. I want to talk to her." The security guards let go of Wuxia, but they didn't dare to be careless. They stood closest to Wuxia. If she dared to do anything to hurt Chen Tingfang, they would immediately subdue her. Chen Tingfang stared coldly at Wuxia and sneered, "Wuxia, you didn't expect this, right? Every dog has its day. Today you're in my hands." After the argument just now, Wuxia was in a mess. Her hair was messy and her clothes were untidy. After she regained her freedom, she didn't do anything extreme like the security guards had expected. Instead, she glared at Chen Tingfang and said through gritted teeth, "There's no good person in the Ji family. Ji Bowen killed my husband, and your daughter wants to kill my son. Even if I die and turn into a ghost, I won't let you off." Chen Tingfang didn't take her threats seriously at all. She sneered, "You said my husband killed your husband. Are you delusional? You're the one who's delusional. If Ji Bowen didn't kill my husband and steal the company, the Ji Group would be our family now. What's there to be proud of? Your identity as a rich wife was stolen. Yu Xiu thought about her husband's tragic death and her son's imprisonment. Then she thought about how she was alone and living a difficult life. She felt more and more desperate and broke down. There was only one thought in her mind, and that was that her tragedy was caused by Ji Bowen. She wanted to kill Ji Bowen and everyone in the Ji family. There was a voice in her head that kept saying, "Kill them, kill them." She suddenly pushed away the security guards in front of her and rushed to the Ji family's living room. Qin Tingfang and the other two were caught off guard and were a step behind. When they ran to the living room, Yu Xiu had already run into the kitchen. They didn't know what she wanted to do, so they quickly chased after her. When they reached the kitchen door, they saw Yu Xiu holding cooking oil in one hand and a lighter in the other. She poured the cooking oil on the ground and shouted, "Don't come over. If you dare come over, I'll set it on fire immediately." "Don't set it on fire. Calm down. We'll leave immediately." One of the security guards reacted quickly. He gave his companion a look, indicating that he should hurry out and call the police. He pulled Qin Tingfang's arm and slowly left the kitchen. The security guard quietly hid behind Qin Tingfang and his colleagues. He planned to retreat further away and call the police. Unexpectedly, Yu Xiu's eyes were very sharp. She noticed his small movements and screamed, "Don't move. The three of you don't move. If anyone dares to move, I'll set this place on fire immediately." As she spoke, she pressed the lighter with a click and a flame sprang up. The red tongue of flame could engulf this place at any time. Beauty novel Xinwu 799. Chapter 918. Qin Tingfang reached out and comforted her nervously, "Don't move, don't move. We won't move. Ms. Yu, please calm down. Put down the lighter. If there's anything, let's sit down and talk." Yu Xiu hugged the cooking oil and approached them step by step, forcing them to retreat from the kitchen. The four of them slowly moved to the living room. Yu Xiu poured the cooking oil as she walked. The cooking oil flowed all over the floor. Moreover, it was a wooden floor. If it was lit, it would be difficult to control the fire. Qin Tingfang and the other two's hearts were in their throats. Their minds raced as they tried to think of a way to snatch the lighter from Yu Xiu's hands. "Don't move. All of you don't move." Yu Xiu glanced around threateningly. Other than them, there were also a few servants in the living room who were scared silly. The cowardly ones' legs were trembling as they prayed in their hearts, "Bodhisattva, please protect me." The more courageous and quick-witted ones had already escaped from the villa and anxiously called the police. After calling the police, they didn't know what to do and hid far away. Yu Xiu's gaze fell on Qin Tingfang. She said sternly, "Qin Tingfang, hurry and call Ji Bowen back. No, not just Ji Bowen but also Ji Yuqi and Ji Yunhan. I want all of you to be buried with my husband." Qin Tingfang was frightened by the lighter in her hand. She quickly said, "Okay, I'll call them right away. Calm down." Under Yu Xiu's threatening gaze, she didn't dare to take the phone from the coffee table. A servant carefully handed the phone to her. After answering the call, Qin Tingfang forced herself to be calm. "When Bowen, something happened at home. Come back immediately." Ji Bowen pressed his forehead and said helplessly, "What happened?" Qin Tingfang secretly glanced at Yu Xiu. "A guest is looking for you. Come back immediately." "I'm busy right now and can't leave. If it's not an important guest, send him away first." Qin Tingfang was about to cry. Her voice trembled as she said, "It's very important. It's a very important guest. If you don't come back, we'll all die." As soon as she finished speaking, the phone in her hand was snatched away by Yu Xiu. Yu Xiu fiercely threw the phone on the floor, and then she kicked Qin Tingfang's stomach and scolded, "Who told you to say that? You want Ji Bowen to call the police, right? You want Ji Bowen to call the police, right?" She was in a sorry state. She wanted to get up. "Yu Xiu. You, S's, her assessed, st. Her, tis she tis, tis teat. Yo, why are you looking at me like that? Are you not convinced?" Yu Xiu had nowhere to vent the anger in her heart. She just found a way to vent her anger. She raised her foot again and kicked Qin Tingfang. The woman's painful screams instantly resounded in the living room. The others present were worried that they would agitate Yu Xiu, so no one dared to say anything. Poor Qin Tingfang could only endure her punches and kicks. As for Ji Bowen, he heard the sound of things being smashed coming from the phone and a woman's angry scolding. He had a bad premonition. He didn't care about the company's affairs and ordered the driver to drive home as fast as possible. Jiuchi didn't have classes in the afternoon, so she went home early. Just as she was about to enter the villa, she received a call from Xiao Rou. Xiao Rou sounded very anxious. Yuchi, no matter where you are, don't come home. Jiang Tianhao's mother ran to the villa to cause trouble. She poured oil in the living room and said she was going to set the villa on fire. I escaped with a few other people. We've called the police, but the police haven't arrived yet. Don't come back. Jiuchi's heart sank. She quickly asked, Xiao Rou, what's the situation now? How many people are being held hostage? Xiao Rou was so anxious that she was about to cry. Yu Xiu seems to be beating Qin Tingfang. I heard Qin Tingfang's screams coming from inside. Other than her, there are 2 security guards and 4 servants. Okay, I got it. Don't worry. Find a safe place and gather the people who escaped. Let's all hide. After saying that, she immediately hung up. She opened the glove compartment and rummaged around inside. She took out a small cloth bag. After opening the bag, she saw rows of silver needles neatly arranged. These silver needles were given to her by Zhao Yao when she was practicing martial arts and learning the acupuncture points of the human body. She didn't expect that they would come in handy today. Jiuchi parked the car outside the villa and sneaked into the courtyard. Xiao Rou was hiding in the garden. When she saw her, she anxiously grabbed her hand and whispered, Yuchi, don't go in. It's too dangerous. Jiuchi whispered, don't worry, I'm confident that nothing will happen. Qin Tingfang aside, there are still many innocent people inside. I can't just watch them get into trouble. After saying that, she patted Xiao Rou's hand and walked towards the backyard with determination. First, she turned off the alarm to avoid triggering it and agitating Yu Xiu. She couldn't go through the front door. She climbed the ladder to the balcony on the 2nd floor. Then she entered her room from the balcony. She took off her shoes and casually picked up an antique vase. She quietly walked down the stairs step by step. A few people were standing facing the stairs. The moment they saw her, they couldn't help but widen their eyes. She smiled and put her index finger to her lips, signaling them not to scream. Yu Xiu's back was facing the stairs, so she didn't see Jiuchi. She was still kicking Qin Tingfang. Even though she was panting from exhaustion, she still hugged the bucket of cooking oil tightly and held the lit lighter tightly. The more quick-witted security guard also saw Jiuchi appear. Jiuchi signaled him to look at the lighter in Yu Xiu's hand. He blinked in understanding and suddenly said, Ms. Jiuchi, the lighter in your hand seems to be running out of oil. When Yu Xiu heard this, she immediately stopped beating people and instinctively looked at the lighter in her hand. Sure enough, after burning for a long time, there wasn't much oil left. She didn't know if it could last until Ji Bowen returned. She hesitated whether she should turn off the lighter to save oil. However, if she turned it off, she was worried that others would pounce on her and snatch it away. After thinking for a moment, she finally thought of a good idea. She would drench everyone with oil. If they dared to come close to her, she would immediately light up the lighter and throw it at them. Yu Xiu pointed in a direction and shouted, all of you stand over there in a row. Those people stood in a row in fear, not knowing what she was going to do. In the next second they understood. Yu Xiu splashed the cooking oil on them like water and threatened sternly, if any of you dare to come close to me, I will immediately light up the lighter and throw it at you. Do you understand? No one dared to resist and nodded submissively. Yu Xiu was very satisfied and finally turned off the lighter. The moment the flame disappeared, Jiuchi quickly raised her hand and a thin silver needle flew towards Yu Xiu's right wrist. The needle pierced the acupuncture point and her entire arm went numb. Her fingers trembled and the lighter fell to the ground with a clang. Yu Xiu sensed that something was wrong and quickly bent down to pick up the lighter. The others were too far away and it was too late for them to snatch it. Jiuchi was already prepared. She picked up the antique vase and threw it in Yu Xiu's direction. The vase hit the back of her head and her body swayed before she fell to the ground. Although her vision turned black, she didn't give up and used her hand to rub the floor, trying to pick up the lighter. Jiuchi took advantage of the moment she fell to the ground and quickly ran to the living room and kicked the lighter to the living room door. The lighter rolled to Ji Bowen's feet. When Ji Bowen saw the scene in front of him, his heart almost stopped beating. His legs couldn't exert any strength and he kicked the lighter out of the door twice. The lighter flew into the bushes by the side of the road. Immediately after, a group of police officers rushed in. Outside the courtyard, there was a fire engine and an ambulance. Jiuchi quietly pulled out the silver needle from Yu Xiu's wrist and put it in her pocket. She smiled brightly at Ji Bowen. Dad, don't worry. I'm fine. Ji Bowen's expression was ugly. He was silent and walked straight to Jiuchi. His heavy eyes stared at her. Worry, fear, heartache, blame, all kinds of complicated emotions intertwined in his eyes. However, due to the presence of outsiders, he couldn't say what he wanted to say. When the policemen saw the situation in front of them, they were all stunned. Jiuchi smiled and said, "Officers, the criminal has been subdued. I'll have to trouble you to bring her to the police station." The leading police officer came back to his senses and hurriedly said, "Okay, no problem. Little girl, were you the one who subdued her?" Jiuchi smiled mischievously, "Thank you for the compliment, but it was all thanks to the help of that antique vase." The police officer gave a thumbs up, "You're very brave." When Yushio was arrested, she kept shouting that Ji Bowen had killed her husband and that the police should arrest Ji Bowen as well. However, no one paid attention to her and directly sent her to the police car. Chen Tingfang was beaten up by Yushio and had already fainted. 2 medical staff carried her into the ambulance. Ji Bowen and Jiuchi also got into the ambulance and accompanied them to the hospital. In the car, the atmosphere was heavy. The medical staff gave Chen Tingfang emergency treatment for her wounds. Although Ji Bowen hated Chen Tingfang, he was also worried about her injuries. The father and daughter were silent for a moment. When they were about to reach the hospital, Ji Bowen looked at Jiuchi and said with a straight face, "If something like this happens again in the future, you're not allowed to rush in recklessly. What if an accident happens?" Jiuchi shamelessly moved to his side and said softly, "Dad, I know I was wrong. I won't dare to do it again." Ji Bowen said impatiently, "You're always so disobedient. You say you understand, but the next time something like this happens, you'll definitely rush in again." How would his daughter know? When he saw her knocking Yushio to the ground and snatching the lighter, his heart almost jumped out of his chest. Jiuchi knew that she couldn't get away with it. She said carefully, "Dad, actually I've practiced martial arts with Grandpa Zhao Yao. So when I was dealing with Yushio, I was 100% confident that I wouldn't be in danger. Dad, I can't just watch her set the fire. There are so many innocent people in there. I can't just watch her threaten you." If Jiuchi didn't snatch the lighter and subdue Yushio, after Jiuchi returned home, Yushio would definitely set the house on fire and burn everyone to death. Ji Bowen was silent for a long time. Finally, he sighed heavily and said, "Dad is very happy to see you so brave. However, I'm more worried. You're my daughter. You're the pride of me and your mother. We want to see you safe and happy. Do you understand?" Beauty novel Shinwu 799. Chapter 919. Jiuchi hurriedly nodded. "Dad, I understand. I'll be more careful in the future. I won't let myself get hurt." Ji Bowen's expression softened a little. He rubbed her hair and said gently, "When did you learn martial arts? You didn't even know about it?" Jiuchi playfully stuck out her tongue. "It was last year. Actually, Ahan also learned martial arts. We just wanted to strengthen our bodies and have more ability to protect ourselves. Dad, you won't be angry, right?" Ji Bowen harumphed. "Angry, of course I'm angry. I'm angry that you two actually did things behind my back. My children have really grown up. They're so scheming. You hide everything from your father." Jiuchi hurriedly hugged his arm and shook it to please him. "Dad, we were wrong. We won't hide it from you in the future." Ji Bowen wasn't really angry. He was just teasing her. Seeing her eagerness to please him, he couldn't help but laugh. All right. You're already a big girl. You're still so spoiled. You'll make a fool of yourself." She harumphed. "Even if I become an old woman, I'll still be a child in Dad's heart. I want to act spoiled with Dad." He tapped her forehead with his finger and scolded in a joking manner, "Naughty girl." Chen Tingfang was sent to the city's people's hospital, which was the hospital where Lu Jianfeng was staying. After Lu Jianfeng received the news, he dragged his injured leg and anxiously rushed to Chen Tingfang's ward. He didn't even look at Ji Bowen and his daughter. He rushed to the doctor and asked anxiously, "Doctor, how's her condition? Are her injuries serious?" "The patient has multiple soft tissue injuries. Fortunately, her injuries aren't serious. She'll recover in about half a month." Lu Jianfeng glanced at the unconscious Chen Tingfang. His brows furrowed tightly and his tone was hurried. "Since her injuries aren't serious, why hasn't she woken up yet? Have you checked her head?" The doctor said helplessly, "We've already checked her head. There aren't any injuries. Please don't worry. The patient will wake up in a few hours at most." "What about the other areas? Have you checked them all?" "Of course, her injuries aren't serious. Please don't worry." Lu Jianfeng repeatedly asked the doctor to confirm that Chen Tingfang was indeed fine before he let the doctor go. After the doctor left, he immediately vented his anger on Ji Bowen and said with a livid face, "How did you take care of Ting Fang? How did she get hurt so badly?" Ji Yuqi really wanted to roll her eyes. This was clearly an accident, yet Lu Jianfeng was blaming her father. If he wasn't looking for trouble, then what was? Ji Bowen didn't look too good either. He said slowly, Yu Xiu barged into the house and held Ting Fang hostage. The injuries on her body were also caused by Yu Xiu. Lu Jianfeng said coldly, "Is your Ji family security system just for show? You actually let someone barge into the house." Ji Bowen's face was extremely ugly after being lectured by an outsider in front of his daughter. He clenched his fists and was about to say something when Ji Yuqi stood up. She raised her chin and said righteously, "Uncle Lu, you've gone too far. I know that you're worried about Auntie Chen because of her injuries, but please don't take out your anger on my father. It was indeed the security system's negligence to let Yu Xiu barge into the house. However, I've asked the security guards and they said that they had already subdued Yu Xiu and were going to chase her out of the courtyard. It was Auntie Chen who ordered them to let go of Yu Xiu, which caused her to barge into the villa. Auntie Chen is injured, so she should also bear a part of the responsibility. She shouldn't push all the blame onto my father. Don't you think so, Uncle Lu?" Her words were clear and the main points were clear. Even the furious Lu Jianfeng had to admit that what she said made sense. However, he obviously couldn't swallow his pride and admit his mistake. Instead, he sternly asked, "Do you have the right to interrupt when your elders are talking?" Ji Yuqi smiled faintly and said indifferently, "If the term elder means that you can't differentiate right from wrong, good from evil, then I really don't agree." Those light words slapped Lu Jianfeng hard in the face. He had heard from Ting Fang that Ji Bowen's daughter had a sharp tongue and wasn't easy to get along with. He didn't take it to heart, but now he realized that she wasn't simple. He hated her even more. Lu Jianfeng's deep black eyes stared fixedly at Ji Yuqi. She smiled faintly and calmly welcomed him. The two of them were in a deadlock. Ji Bowen coughed and pretended to reprimand her. "Chichi, how can you speak to Uncle Lu like that? Don't you have classes in the afternoon? Hurry up and go to school." Ji Yuqi knew that her father was looking for a way out for Lu Jianfeng. She shrugged and sweetly said, "Okay, I got it. Dad, I'll go to school then. Uncle Lu, I'll take my leave first. Bye-bye." Lu Jianfeng's face darkened and he nodded. After Ji Yuqi left, the atmosphere in the room froze again. Lu Jianfeng moved his legs and sat on the chair in front of the bed. He seemed to be waiting there for Chen Tingfang to wake up. Ji Bowen couldn't chase him away, so he helplessly frowned. While Chen Tingfang was recuperating, Yu Xiu was locked up in the detention center. She admitted to trespassing and kidnapping. At the same time, she proposed to sue Ji Bowen for causing her husband's death. However, because the statute of limitations had expired, the court didn't accept the case. She was clamoring to see Ji Bowen. In the reception room, Ji Bowen and Yu Xiu sat across from each other through a thick glass window. Yu Xiu glared hatefully at the man across the glass and said sternly, "Ji Bowen, you're lucky that I didn't burn you to death. Even if I die and become a ghost, I won't let you off. I won't let anyone from the Ji family off." Ji Bowen sighed. "Yu Xiu, why do you hate me so much? Why do you hate the Ji family so much?" Yu Xiu gritted her teeth and said, "You're still playing dumb. You stole the company back then and caused Zhen Yao's death. Tianhao and I were forced to live in the countryside and suffered for decades. Now your stepdaughter caused Tianhao to be sentenced to prison. His life was ruined by the Ji family. Who else would I hate if not you? Let me tell you, Ji Bowen, God is watching. You'll suffer retribution." Ji Bowen stared at her in disbelief. After a while he said, "You're saying that I caused Zhen Yao's death? Well, you're still playing dumb. Back then, Zhen Yao started a company with you. In order to monopolize the company, you set him up and chased him out of the company. Later, Zhen Yao tried to start another company. After he failed, he went to look for you and wanted to return to Ji Group to work. But what about you? Not only did you not help him because of your years of friendship, you even got someone to kill him with a car. Ji Bowen, you're so black-hearted. How can you sleep after so many years? Have you never dreamed of Zhen Yao?" Ji Bowen was shocked. He looked at Yu Xiu as if she was crazy. Her wrinkled cheeks were distorted by anger and looked even more terrifying. He was silent for a long time. Then he slowly shook his head and said in a deep voice, "I didn't expect you to misunderstand me so deeply. It seems that there are some things that I can't hide from you anymore." After the conversation, Yu Xiu's face was full of tears. Her eyes were lifeless and she muttered, "I don't believe you. You must be lying." Looking at her figure being taken away by the prison guards, Ji Bowen sighed heavily. He didn't expect that a well-intentioned lie would cause such an irreversible situation. If he had known, he wouldn't have hidden it for Jiang Jinyao. Dad, what's wrong? Are you feeling unwell? Ji Yuqi stepped into the living room and found that her father had come home early. He sat on the sofa in silence and didn't look very good. Ji Bowen came back to his senses. He pinched his eyebrows and said in a tired voice, "I'm fine. I just remembered some things from the past and felt a little emotional." Ji Yuqi walked behind him and massaged his shoulders. She said softly, "Dad, when you visited Yu Xiu in the detention center today, did she say something to you? Last time when she was arrested, she said that you killed her husband. Who is her husband? Is that true?" This question had been lingering in her heart for a long time. Today she finally had the chance to ask. Ji Bowen didn't hide it from her. He slowly said, "Then we'll have to start from 20 years ago." The story wasn't long, but it was shocking. Ji Yuqi finally understood why Jiang Tianhao in her previous life was so ruthless against the Ji family, against her and Ahan. She always thought that Jiang Tianhao was after money, but now she knew that he was after revenge. Different prisons, different visiting rooms, and different people visiting them. Ji Yuqi looked at the man on the other side of the glass. He used to be high-spirited and gentle, but now he was haggard. In addition, there were a few long scars on his cheeks because of the special care his companions gave him in prison. He looked down and out. Jiang Tianhao was also looking at her. She was even more beautiful than the last time they met. Her jade-like face, cold and elegant expression, was still elegant and noble. He bitterly opened his mouth and said in a hoarse and unpleasant voice, "I didn't expect you to come visit me, Yuqi." Ji Yuqi looked at him coldly and said indifferently, "I'm here to tell you some truths. Before I tell you, please answer me a question. You hate the Ji family, right?" Jiang Tianhao was shocked. "Why do you ask? That means you hate them." "Ah, how interesting. Jiang Tianhao, you hate the Ji family and my father because my father stole your father's company and killed your father, right? How do you know?" "It's simple. I found out the truth. I want to tell you what the real truth is." Ji Yuqi unfolded a piece of paper beside her and pasted it on the glass. She said in a low voice, "Open your eyes and take a good look. Your father's signature is on this piece of paper. He personally agreed to transfer the entire company to my father for a price of 1 million. Jiang Tianhao carefully read the document and found that it was indeed his father who proposed it. He said unwillingly, "Ji Bowen must have dug a trap for my father to jump into. Otherwise, how could he sell the shares for 1 million? Ji Yuqi sneered. "You think 1 million is too cheap, don't you? Then what if you add this IOU for 5 million? She took another piece of paper and pasted the side with the words on it on the glass so that he could see it clearly. She continued, "This IOU was personally written by Jiang Jinyao. Due to his greed for fame, he was schemed against and owed the other party $5 million. In order to help him pay off this debt, my father went to all the banks in Ing City and used the company as collateral to get a loan of $6 million. $5 million was used to pay off the debt, and the remaining $1 million was given to your father to buy his shares. Attention Jianghu 799. Chapter 920. Jiang Jinyao almost caused the company to go bankrupt. If it weren't for my dad's efforts to turn the situation around, would there still be G Group today? My dad helped him keep this secret for the sake of his longtime friend so that he could maintain his dignity in front of his wife and children and not embarrass himself in front of his employees. I didn't expect that because of this, you would misunderstand that it was my dad who snatched the shares from your father's hands. What a joke. What? Not only did his father almost cause the collapse of G Group, but he also withdrew his investment and ran away on his own during the most difficult time? No, this can't be true." Jiang Tianhao's eyes were about to split open. He suppressed his anger and roared, "That's impossible. You made this up." Ji Yuqi curled her lips in disdain. "Something that you've always believed in suddenly collapsed. You couldn't accept reality, so you hypnotized yourself and said that all of this was fake. Jiang Tianhao, can you be any more useless?" Jiang Tianhao was like a trapped beast. He grabbed his hair angrily and roared angrily. He didn't believe that all of this was fake. He suddenly jumped up agitatedly and rushed to the front of the glass. He shouted anxiously, "There's also a car accident. Ji Bowen caused the car accident and caused my dad's death." Ji Yuqi sneered. "My dad caused the car accident? Jiang Tianhao, do you have a brain? Your dad drank too much and ran into the road by himself. He was hit by a truck and died. The police even made a statement at that time. If you don't believe me, we can go to the police station and check the file. No, I don't believe it, I don't believe it. Jiang Qianhao roared emotionally. Jiuqi looked at him coldly and criticized him mercilessly and sharply. You obviously have doubts, but you still don't want to believe it. That's because you treat revenge as your life's goal. You refuse to admit that you wasted 20 years of your youth to hate an enemy that doesn't even exist. Jiang Qianhao, you really are a failure. I look down on you. Jiang Qianhao was mercilessly reprimanded by her. He held his head tightly with both hands and trembled all over. He suddenly felt that he was ridiculous. Since he was young, his mother had told him that Ji Bowen had killed his father. She also said that the truck driver had been bribed by Ji Bowen. He believed it without a doubt. Even when he asked for details and his mother couldn't explain it clearly, he never doubted it. He just thought that his mother couldn't remember it clearly. As he grew older, because of his poverty, he suffered a lot of hardships and received many supercilious looks from people. He attributed all these hardships to his lack of a father. Thus he hated Ji Bowen more and more. He wanted to take revenge on the Ji family and take back his property. This became his motivation to live. He didn't dare to question it. He was afraid that if things weren't as he thought, then what would he rely on to survive? Step by step he approached Jiuqi and Yi Zhisu. In his countless acting sessions he wore all kinds of masks until he forgot his original appearance. When he turned around he found that he had gained nothing but scars all over his body. Even his one and only love had long been buried by his own hands. Hot tears flowed from the corners of his eyes. They fell onto his pants and quickly seeped into the fabric. After a long silence, he slowly raised his head. His deep-set eyes were red as he stared deeply at Jiuqi. Yuqi, have you ever loved me? Jiuqi's eyes narrowed slightly. She suddenly remembered the time when she fell off the cliff in her previous life. Her fingers clung onto the railing as her body hung in mid-air. She asked him in despair why he wanted to harm her when she clearly loved him so much. At that time, he looked down at her from above and sneered, "Don't you understand? I've never loved you." Pulling herself out of her memories, Jiuqi suddenly laughed out loud. She laughed so hard that tears flowed from the corners of her eyes. She slowly stood up and looked down at Jiang Tianhao on the other side of the glass. She sneered and said, "Don't you understand? I've never loved you." This was what he owed her in her previous life. In this life she was finally returning it to him. Jiang Tianhao's body trembled. He was like an eggplant that had been hit by frost. His face was ashen and lifeless. "You've never loved me? Not even a tiny bit?" His voice sounded as if it came from a broken flute. It was bleak and unpleasant to the ears. She said coldly, "No. So you're also acting? Yes, since you've never given your heart, what right do you have to ask others to give their heart?" Jiuqi's cold eyes slid across his cheeks. After throwing down these words, she left behind a proud and cold back view and walked away resolutely. Jiang Qianhao stared at her back view in a daze. After a long time he said in a low voice, "But I loved you." The fog was confusing. He couldn't see the direction clearly and couldn't see the surroundings clearly. He walked aimlessly in the fog alone. He had a thought in his mind that he was looking for something, but he couldn't remember what it was that he was looking for. Suddenly, a gust of wind came from nowhere and blew away the thick fog around him. He stood there in a daze and found that he was standing beside a crystal-clear river. On the calm surface of the river, familiar scenes were reflected. On a cold winter day, he pushed her into the lake and rescued her with his own hands. Under the falling leaves, the girl smiled shyly. "Senior Tianhao, thank you for saving me from the lake." At the entrance of the ladies' room, the girl was drenched from head to toe. Her wet hair stuck to her pale face. She said in tears, "Senior Gu Fifan and I are innocent. I don't know what happened at the ball. Please believe me." On her 21st birthday she was almost molested by Chen Yifei. He saved her and let everyone see the embarrassing scene between them. From then on he became her fiancé. At Zhu Zhu's birthday party, everyone saw her and Gu Fifan hugging each other with their clothes disheveled. She tried to explain herself, but no one was willing to listen. Madame Zhu scolded her for being shameless and chased her out of the party. He left with her and was very gentle. At that moment, her heart and eyes only had him. Ji Bowen was completely disappointed in her and allowed her to enter Ji Group. When she was 23, he found out that the eldest young master of Shin Group liked her. He was afraid that she would fall in love with someone else, so he listened to Yi Zisu's suggestion and ruined her. Without her beautiful face, would Shinja still like her? When she was 24, they got married and he was promoted to manager of G Group as he wished. That same year he wanted to bribe Jean Mingyao and personally sent her to Jean Mingyao's bed. On the first anniversary of their wedding she transferred 10% of her shares to him. He took over Ji Bowen's position as CEO, and Ji Bowen died in a car accident. On the second anniversary of their wedding she had lost her value. He and Yi Zissou personally pushed her off the cliff. The moment she fell off the cliff she screamed like a ghost, "Jiang Qianhao, I hate you. You adulterous couple, you'll die a horrible death." The images kept changing, real, fake, happy, painful. It was like an old movie that was spread out in front of his eyes. Finally, the calm river suddenly became turbulent. A violent storm swept him into the rolling waves, and a rapidly spinning whirlpool dragged him into the endless darkness. Jiang Qianhao woke up screaming. In the huge prison cell, there was only the sound of the television broadcasting the news. The news said that Ying City had welcomed a new leader, Lu Jianfeng. The host talked non-stop about Lu Jianfeng's past achievements. The prisoner sitting in front of the television complained impatiently, "Damn it, it looks like there's only this stupid news." The noisy voices and the voices in the dream kept mixing and separating. Jiang Qianhao held his head uneasily. He didn't know if this was reality or a dream. He didn't even know if he was living in reality or in a dream. Jiang Qianhao went crazy. He was like Xianglin's wife, pulling everyone in the prison cell and repeating the same sentence tirelessly, "I'm the CEO of G Group, I'm the CEO of G Group." *CK, are you crazy? If you're the CEO of G Group, I'm the leader of Ying City. *CK, crazy man, ignore him. A burly man kicked him away. He was sent flying to the corner of the wall. He curled up in the corner and kept muttering, "I'm the CEO of G Group, I'm the CEO of G Group." The prison hired a professional psychiatrist to examine Jiang Qianhao. In the end it was confirmed that he had gone crazy. He was sent to a mental hospital to live out the rest of his life. After Lu Jianfeng recovered from his injuries, he received a transfer order. He was now the leader of Ying City. He took up the position alone and left his wife and son in Hanqing. Because his son, Lu Qianhao, was about to take the college entrance examination, in order not to affect his son's studies, he let him continue to study in his original school. His wife stayed in Hanqing to take care of him. He lived alone in the family building of the municipal compound. Chen Tingfang would visit him every 2 days to help him do the laundry and cook. She also bought vegetables and fruits to put in the fridge in case he needed them. Every time this happened he would sit on the sofa and read the newspaper while Chen Tingfang would be busy in the kitchen. Occasionally she would poke her head out to talk to him. He had an illusion that the two of them were husband and wife. Just as the word husband and wife appeared in his mind, he immediately pushed it back down. He looked away nervously, afraid that she would discover the secret he had hidden deep in his heart. "Cousin, my apron strap has loosened. Help me fasten it." Her smiling voice came from the kitchen. His heart suddenly contracted and he almost jumped up from the sofa. His fingers suddenly tightened around the newspaper. He took a deep breath and said slowly, "Wait, I'll be right there." She stood in front of the kitchen counter with an egg beater in her hand. She quickly stirred the eggs in the bowl. Under the soft light, her side profile was gentle and beautiful. He couldn't help but reach out and move closer to her white cheeks. She suddenly turned around and smiled. "Cousin, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and help me fasten my apron." His hand that was in midair stiffly changed its trajectory and slowly slid down to the strap of her apron. His fingers inadvertently touched her waist. Her body trembled and she giggled. "You're so annoying. You know that I'm ticklish?" Her smile was like a flower. Her well-maintained skin was as bright as a prostitute's. He couldn't help but feel his throat tighten. His fingers clenched tightly and he slowly took a step back to put some distance between them. He said in a hoarse voice, "If there's nothing else, I'll go out first." He was afraid that if he stayed any longer, he wouldn't be able to resist pouncing on her. "Okay, you go out first. I'm going to start cooking now." Chen Tingfang didn't notice his strange behavior. She buried her head and beat the eggs. When his footsteps faded away, she suddenly thought of something. She looked up and called out, "Cousin?" "What?" He stopped and turned around to look at her. His dark eyes were like the sky before a storm. "I brought red wine over. It's in the fridge. Help me take it out." "Okay." Under the soft light, the mellow red wine, and the person sitting facing him, the atmosphere was very good. Unknowingly, Lu Jianfeng drank 2 glasses of wine. When he put down the glass, he found that Chen Tingfang was already drunk. Her cheeks were red and her eyes were blurred. She was half lying on the table looking at the wine bottle and giggling. Lu Jianfeng's heart softened. He used his hand to tuck her hair behind her ear and said gently, "What are you thinking of that made you smile so happily? Come and see." Hongcha 866. Chapter 921. His fingers were cool and comfortable. She rubbed her burning face against his fingers, and he quickly retracted his hand as though he had been electrocuted. His heartbeat quickened. She didn't seem to notice it. She narrowed her eyes and muttered, "We haven't drunk like this in a long time." "Yeah, it's been a long time." He stared at her, and his gaze gradually became heated. He said slowly, "Ting Fong?" "Chem?" She propped her head up and looked at him with a dazed gaze. "Nothing." His throat tightened and he suddenly stood up. "I'm going to the washroom." He quickly walked into the washroom and splashed his face with cold water, trying to extinguish the fire in his heart. However, the water was like gasoline. Not only did it not extinguish the fire, but it also made it burn more fiercely. Her figure also became clearer in his mind. He suddenly turned on the shower head and drenched himself from head to toe with cold water. When he came out of the washroom, it was already 10 minutes later. Chen Tingfang was sprawled on the dining table, completely drunk. She was still mumbling something incoherently. He shook his head helplessly and dotingly. He shook her shoulders. "Tingfang, wake up. I'll take you home." She muttered impatiently, "No. Forget it. Staying over for a night occasionally wasn't a big deal. He would just give Ji Bowen a call later." Lu Jianfeng first went back to his room to change his clothes, then picked her up and put her on the bed in the guest room. He took off her shoes and pulled the quilt over her body. Just as he was about to get up and leave, a hand suddenly grabbed his clothes, and then a soft body pressed against his arm. "Ihan, I missed you so much." "Ihan?" She leaned on his arm and sobbed. Lu Jianfeng was angry and jealous. Who was Ihan? She had never mentioned him to him. That man named Ihan was actually hidden deep in her heart. He was going crazy with jealousy. He suddenly grabbed her wrist and asked with an ashen face, "Who is Ihan? What's your relationship with him?" She was so drunk that she couldn't understand what he was saying, let alone answer his question. She just hugged him tightly and called out, "Ihan. Oh, it's so hot. Ihan, let go of me. I'm so hot. Tingfang, don't move." Lu Jianfeng was about to go crazy from her torture. When she struggled, the buttons in front of her chest were pushed open, revealing her snow-white skin and a faintly discernible cleavage. The flame in his heart was ignited once again, burning his rationality. "Ihan, I miss you. I want you." Women were like wolves in their 30s and tigers in their 40s. Qin Tingfang had been dry for so long. After being numbed by the alcohol, her body was filled with a strong desire. She was like a seductive vixen as she wrapped herself around his body. Her hands were on his body, and her lips kissed his firm chest. He sucked in a breath of cold air. His whole body was tense and all his blood was rushing to the top of his head. The beast in his heart was roaring wildly, wanting to suppress her. However, the remnants of reason in his brain kept reminding him that he couldn't. That was evil, that was disgusting. "Tingfang, don't mess around anymore." The veins on Lu Jianfeng's forehead throbbed. In the end he held it in. He grabbed her hand and pulled her away from his body. He wrapped her tightly in the blanket and left the room in a sorry state as if he was fleeing for his life. After the hangover he had a splitting headache. Qin Tingfang rubbed her forehead and opened the bedroom door. When she saw a man and a woman sitting opposite each other in the living room, she was stunned. She hurriedly tidied up her messy hair and clothes and smiled awkwardly. "Cousin-in-law, when did you come?" Sitting opposite Lu Jianfeng was his wife, Wuxia. She used a tissue to wipe the corners of her eyes. Her eyes were red and she forced a smile. "I just arrived this morning. When I came, Jianfeng said that you were sleeping, so I didn't wake you up." Chen Tingfang noticed that Wuxia should have cried, and her cousin's expression was very ugly. The atmosphere between them was a little strange. She tactfully said, "I'm really sorry. I slept too late last night and accidentally woke up late. Cousin-in-law, take your time talking. I'll go wash up first." Wuxia nodded. When she entered the bathroom, she turned her gaze and met Lu Jianfeng's eyes again. She said softly, "Jianfeng, what should we do about Tianhao? I'm so scared." She choked on her sobs and tears started to fall again. Lu Jianfeng's brows were tightly knitted. He said in a low voice, "Has it been diagnosed?" She nodded. "I've already asked a specialist to examine it. The diagnosis is acute leukemia. If he doesn't undergo special treatment, he only has half a year to live." At this point she was already sobbing. She covered her mouth with her right hand and tried her best to control herself. The doctor said that a bone marrow transplant is the best treatment. However, in the bone marrow bank, they couldn't find a bone marrow match for Jianhao. This news was like a bolt from the blue to Lu Jianfeng. His son had been smart and healthy since he was young. How could he have acute leukemia? He really didn't want to believe it. However, the medical report was right in front of him. He had no choice but to believe it. He was silent for a long time. He reached out and put his arm around her shoulder. He said hoarsely, "Shuyi, you go back to Hanqing today and handle the procedures for Jianhao's suspension. I'll go back tomorrow and transfer Jianhao to Ying City Hospital. Ying City is the provincial capital after all. The medical standards there are better than Hanqing. Moreover, it's easier for me to take care of you and your son." Okay. Wu Shuyi leaned into his arms and cried softly. Qin Tingfang stood at the bathroom door. The door was opened slightly and she happened to hear their conversation. Knowing that Lu Tianhao was seriously ill, she also felt terrible. She stood there for a long time until the crying stopped. Then she pretended that she didn't know anything and walked out with a normal expression. "Cousin-in-law, it's rare for you to come to Ying City. Let's have lunch together." Wu Shuyi's eyes were still a little red, but her emotions had returned to normal. She smiled and said, "I still have something to do. I have to rush back to Hanqing this afternoon. We'll have plenty of chances to have lunch together in the future." Lu Jianfeng glanced at Qin Tingfang and said, "Shuyi, Tingfang is not an outsider. You don't have to hide Lil Hao's illness from her." Qin Tingfang pretended that she didn't know anything. She looked surprised and asked, "What's wrong with Lil Hao?" Wu Shuyi turned her head away. Her eyes were filled with tears again. Lu Jianfeng said slowly, "Lil Hao is sick. He has acute leukemia and needs a bone marrow transplant. I plan to transfer him to Ying City's People's Hospital." "Bone marrow transplant? Have you found a bone marrow match?" "Not yet. But I believe that we will find one. Lil Hao will be fine." "Yes, Lil Hao will be fine. Cousin-in-law, don't worry too much. Everything will be fine." Qin Tingfang sat beside Wu Shuyi and patted the back of her hand. "I hope so." During the prison visit, Qin Tingfang told Yi Zhisu about Lu Tianhao's illness. Yi Zhisu immediately suggested a blood test to see if her bone marrow was a match with Lu Tianhao's. After all, they were close relatives. Perhaps they could be a match. Soon the prison approved her blood test. Lu Jianfeng, his wife, and Qin Tingfang were all looking forward to the test. They hoped that it would be a match. However, things didn't go according to their wishes. The test results showed that their bone marrow match was less than 5 points. This meant that the success rate of the surgery was very low. Lu Jianfeng didn't dare to let his son take the risk unless it was absolutely necessary. He thought that there would be a way to find a bone marrow match for his son. Wu Shuyi burst into tears. All her relatives and friends had done blood tests. Their bone marrow match with Lil Hao's bone marrow was less than 5%. Lil Hao was still so young. Was there really no hope? Yi Zhisu was also very sad. After spending a few months in prison, she clearly understood the value of life. Lil Hao was still so young. She looked at the test report in her hand and sighed dejectedly. "It would be great if I could get my friends to do the test. Oh, and Uncle Ji and Yuchi. At least there's more hope." Qin Tingfang's eyes lit up. She suddenly remembered that Ji Bowen was very concerned about his family's health. Every May he would organize a full-body checkup for his family members. Even the servants of the Ji family had the right to a free checkup. If she persuaded him to do the checkup in advance, it should be fine. That night at dinner, Qin Tingfang said with a smile, "Bowen, I've been feeling tired lately. I plan to do a full-body checkup. Ahan and Yuchi haven't had a checkup in a long time. When are you free? Let's go together." Ji Yuchi looked up at her and said slowly, "Auntie Qin, we used to have a checkup in May. This year I plan to do it again." Ji Yunhan raised his hand. "I plan to do it in May too. 2 months in advance is nothing. Bowen, you should also have a checkup. During this period of time your complexion is not very good." Ji Bowen glanced at her and wanted to say that his complexion was not good because too many things had happened at home. After thinking about it, he held back. He wiped the corner of his mouth with a napkin and said, "In that case, let's do the checkup in advance this year. Butler, make an appointment with the hospital. It's best if it's a day off." "Yes, master." Qin Tingfang was very happy that she had achieved her goal. She poured a bowl of soup for Ji Bowen and was very attentive. Ji Yuchi's brows furrowed, but they quickly relaxed. She used the spoon to slowly stir the hot soup in the bowl, trying to guess what she was up to again. "What? Vice President Qing had gastric bleeding and was sent to the hospital? Jiyuchi received a call from her secretary. She was so angry that her face turned green. She took Shinja's hand and walked quickly to the car. She suppressed her anger and said, "Aja, I'm going to the hospital to visit Qing Sang. That idiot Qing Sang actually had gastric bleeding because of her business partner. If she has a bad stomach, she should drink less. How could she be so honest?" Shinja opened the car door for her and said calmly, "Don't worry. She has always been in good health. It's just gastric bleeding. She won't die. Come and see." Songshu 566. Chapter 922. Jiyuchi buckled her seatbelt and said suspiciously, "Aja, you don't seem very happy." Shinja gestured for Aze, who was sitting in the driver's seat, to start the car. Then he rubbed Yuchi's hair and said expressionlessly, "Correction, I am very unhappy." "What? Qing Sang is my friend and also your subordinate. It's reasonable for us to care about her." Jiyuchi felt that it was necessary to teach him about the ways of the world. If a person was too cold, he would lack friends and feel lonely. She didn't want Shinja to feel lonely. Shinja said seriously, "Because you're jealous. You care more about her than you care about me." I'm not. I'm also very concerned about you." Jiyuchi pouted, feeling wronged. She had been wrongly accused. "I came to your school from the company hungry because I wanted to have lunch with you. But after you heard that Qing Sang was sick, you forgot about me." He stated the truth seriously. Jiyuchi felt guilty. "I'm sorry. It's my fault. If you're hungry, let's go eat first and then go to the hospital, okay?" He patted her head like he was comforting an uneasy pet. "Let's go to the hospital to see Qing Sang first. Otherwise you'll be distracted when you eat." He knew her character very well. She bit her lip. Suddenly, her eyes lit up and her cheeks bloomed with a bright smile. "Wait a minute. I have something for you." She put her handbag on her lap, unzipped it and rummaged through the bag. Finally she took out 2 bags of snacks, a bag of biscuits and a chocolate bar. She handed them to him as if she was presenting a treasure. She smiled happily and said, "Here, these are my snacks. They can fill your stomach." Shinja looked away in disgust. "I never eat this kind of junk food. It's okay to eat it once in a while. It's delicious. I'm not lying." She quickly opened the bag, picked up a piece of biscuit with jam and fed it to him. She coaxed him like she was coaxing a child. "Open your mouth. Good boy, open it quickly." Shinja was speechless. "Do you think I'm a child? Even children aren't as picky as you. Young Master Shin, please eat a little. I'll be very sad if you starve yourself. Please, please." She almost climbed on top of him, one hand on his chest, the other holding the biscuit to his mouth, a pair of beautiful eyes quickly blinking, like the bright stars in the sky. His face was dark. "Feed me." Okay, open your mouth." "It's not like that with your mouth, feed it." She was blushing, S's lips. Then he bit by bit until her fingers finger her fingers. She blushed and whispered, "Stop fooling around. Aze is still here." Aze didn't hear or see anything. His eyes were focused in front of him. As a competent bodyguard and killer, he was very professional. He absolutely didn't see or hear anything indecent. Listen, that didn't seem to be something he could control. Jiyuchi was very worried about Qing Sang. She thought she would see her lying weakly on the hospital bed. In fact, she was leaning against the bed, with one hand on an A4 drip and the other handling company documents. A thick stack of documents was neatly placed beside her. Even when she heard someone come in, she didn't raise her head. "Stop persuading me to rest. If you keep nagging, go back immediately," she said coldly. Oh, even if she was sick, the queen was still the queen. Her aura was strong and imposing. Jiyuchi couldn't help but laugh. She approached her in her high heels. "Queen Qing Sang, who are you angry with? Don't tell me it's Yulei?" Yulei was the only one who could make her so uneasy. Speaking of which, Yulei was really a weirdo. No matter how many times Qing Sang rejected him, he still pounced on her and wouldn't let her go. Speak of the devil. Yulei walked over with a lunchbox in his hand. He laughed heartily and said, "What are you talking about?" As a partner of Free Company, he knew Jiyuchi, the boss behind the scenes. He also heard about her relationship with young Master Shin. So he smiled and nodded at the two of them. Then he turned his gaze to Qing Sang. Obviously, he wanted Qing Sang to answer his question. Qing Sang put down the documents in her hand and said coldly, "I said if you disturb my work again, I'll throw you out." Jiyuchi facepalmed. She couldn't bear to look at the queen's aura. "Brother Yulei, hang in there." She thought Yu Lei would be frustrated. She didn't expect him to turn from a sunny guy to a loyal dog in the next second. His invisible tail wagged behind him and he smiled cutely. Ah Sang, you're the most charming when you're working. But if you don't eat, you won't have the energy to work. So put your work aside and eat first. We have your favorite vegetable porridge today. Jiyuchi widened her eyes. She learned something today. Ching Sang pushed away his hand that was about to help her. She said coldly, "Don't touch me." Ah Sang, don't misunderstand. I just want to help you. Go away. Don't give me that despicable look. Ah Sang, don't you think I'm cute like this? I've been practicing in front of the mirror for a week. Cute? Please don't insult the word cute. Ah Sang, you're so heartless. Sob, sob, sob. The two people in the room bickered as if there was no one else around. Jiyuchi felt that she was particularly unnecessary. Shinja stood beside her and said in a low voice, "See? She's doing very well. You can rest assured now." "Yeah, as long as Ching Sang is fine. Let's go. Don't disturb them." Jiyuchi smiled wickedly and secretly held Shinja's hand. They had already walked to the door when Ching Sang suddenly said, Boss, thank you for coming to see me." "I'm fine." Jiyuchi didn't expect Ching Sang to thank them personally. She raised her eyebrows and smiled. She turned her head and teased, "With Yu Lei taking care of you, we can rest assured. Rest well. You can rest for as long as you want." Ching Sang's face darkened. "Don't put me together with him." Yu Lei beamed. "Thank you, Miss Ji. Ah Sang will go back to work when she recovers." Ching Sang glared at him. "Hey, if you don't speak, no one will think you're mute." What did he mean by, "Ah Sang"? She was her. It had nothing to do with him. Jiyuchi laughed loudly. They really were a pair of quarrelsome lovers. "I can see that Yu Lei really likes Ching Sang. Unfortunately, Ching Sang doesn't like him," Jiyuchi said softly to Shinja in the corridor with their fingers interlocked. Shinja held her hand tightly. "It's not that Ching Sang doesn't have feelings for Yu Lei. It's just that she's used to being cold and doesn't know how to get along with others. Just like when he first fell in love with her, he was a little flustered and a little helpless. He didn't know how to like someone." Jiyuchi looked up at him and smiled. "I really hope they can be happy together. Maybe they will." As long as Yu Lei continued to pester her, Ching Sang would be captured by him sooner or later. After entering the elevator, Jiyuchi saw the door of the office closest to the elevator open. A tall and straight man walked out holding a little girl's hand. Behind them was a doctor in a white coat. The man put on his sunglasses and nodded at the doctor. "Dr. Han, thank you for your hard work." "You're welcome. This is what I should do. Please take care." The elevator door closed slowly, blocking Jiyuchi's line of sight. She narrowed her eyes slightly, and the corners of her lips curved into a cold smile. It was Lu Jianfeng. What was he doing at the hospital? A black car stopped by the side of the road. Lu Jianfeng, dressed in a black suit, held the little girl's hand and walked to the front of the car. When he opened the door, the little girl looked up and said with anticipation, "Uncle, I'm very obedient today. Can I go to the amusement park to play?" Lu Jianfeng bent down and picked her up. A faint smile appeared on his face. "Uncle is not free today. Next time." "Oh." Although it was a pity, the little girl nodded obediently and said sweetly, "As long as I can see Uncle every day, even if I don't go to the amusement park, I'll be very happy. Good girl." He kissed her on the cheek, put her in the passenger seat and buckled her seat belt. Jiyuchi sat in Shinja's car and watched the car in front of her drive away. She frowned slightly. That little girl looked at most 8 years old. What was her relationship with Lu Jianfeng? Why did he bring her to the hospital? Shinja glanced at the disappearing car. "If you're curious, let Liang Yu check it out." I'm okay." On Saturday, Ji Bowen took the whole family to the hospital for a physical examination. The doctor at the reception was an old acquaintance of the Ji family. He chatted and laughed and easily completed the full-body examination. 3 days later, the hospital sent the medical report to the Ji family. Chen Tingfang had told the housekeeper to send the medical report to her as soon as he received it, so she was the first to open the envelope. There was a thick stack of medical reports inside. She looked through them carefully and finally found a different one. It was a bone marrow match analysis. The list showed that the bone marrow of everyone in the Ji family was compatible with Lu Tianhao's bone marrow. The highest match was Ji Yunhan, as high as 80%. Chen Tingfang's eyes shone with ecstasy. Her fingers trembled as she held the thin piece of paper. After a minute, she suppressed the excitement in her heart and quickly put everyone's medical reports into an envelope. Then she used a lighter to burn the results of the match and turned it into ashes. Her fingers trembled slightly and she dialed Lu Jianfeng's number. Hello cousin. Let me tell you a piece of good news. Ji Yunhan and Xiao Hao's bone marrow match is 80%. Xiao Hao can finally undergo a bone marrow transplant. Lu Jianfeng was also very excited. His knuckles turned white as he held the phone. He sounded anxious. Is that true? Qin Tingfang's eyes reddened. She nodded and said, It's true cousin. Hurry up and tell cousin-in-law and Xiao Hao this good news. Tingfang, thank you. Thank you for everything you've done. His voice was low and full of gratitude. Cousin, you don't have to be so polite. We're family. After ending the call, Qin Tingfang let out a long sigh of relief. Previously, she had discussed with her cousin and bribed the person in charge of the medical report to do a HLA test on everyone in the Ji family. The results showed that Ji Yunhan and Xiao Hao's bone marrow match was the highest. Now, the most important thing was how to persuade Ji Yunhan to donate his bone marrow. When Qin Tingfang thought of this problem, her head started to hurt. Previously, she had shed all pretense of cordiality with Ji Yuqi and her brother, and had done many things to hurt them. Now that she wanted to ask Ji Yunhan for help, she was afraid that they wouldn't agree. She thought about it and finally decided to test it out first. That night, after dinner, Qin Tingfang took out the medical report and handed it to everyone one by one. After confirming that everyone was healthy, she let out a sigh of relief and sighed. I saw the news this afternoon. It said that a young man had acute leukemia and needed a bone marrow transplant. His parents and brother had their bone marrow matched and the results showed that the two brothers were a high match. At first, the young man's brother was willing to give him a bone marrow transplant, but later, his brother chickened out and the doctor had no choice but to transplant his father's bone marrow to him. In the end, the bone marrow transplant failed and the young man had a very serious rejection reaction. He died in less than 2 months. Ji Bowen had seen the fickleness of human nature and sighed. In today's society, the relationship between siblings is very thin. Ji Yunhan raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, Dad, you don't have to use this matter to educate Sis and me. We definitely won't be like that pair of brothers. If Sis needs it, let alone bone marrow, even if it's my cornea or kidney, I will donate it to her without hesitation. I think it's the same for you, sister. Am I right, sister? Ji Yuqi slapped him on the head. Bah. Children's words carry no harm. Hurry up and spit out your saliva. Ji Yunhan smiled mischievously and did not look serious. What are you afraid of? I'm just saying. It's not like you'll really get sick. Don't be so afraid. Qin Tingfang coughed and teased. Ahan, if your sis Zissou has leukemia, are you willing to donate your bone marrow to her? Ji Yunhan muttered softly, I don't care if she dies. Zissou? Are you kidding me? That black-hearted bad woman. It's better if she dies. I can't be bothered with her. Ji Bowen's expression changed. Qin Tingfang smiled awkwardly. What if it's a stranger? Will you donate it? Ji Yunhan glanced at her lazily. Auntie Qin, in this world, the only people who can make me do anything are my family members who are related to me by blood. As for the others, it depends on my mood. If I'm in a bad mood, why should I help them? I'm not close to them. His tone was lazy and extremely infuriating. Especially the words connected by blood, they were especially grating. Awesome novel Songshu 566. Chapter 923. Qin Tingfang felt a mouthful of blood in her chest. She was so frustrated that she could die. After a while, she squeezed out a few words from between her teeth. Really? Ah. Ji Bowen's expression became serious. He said slowly, Ahan, your feelings for your family are very good. However, you can't be heartless towards outsiders. If you can help them, help them. Don't act according to your whims. Do you understand? I understand, Dad. I'm just kidding. Ji Yunhan's indifferent attitude made Qin Tingfang's heart sink. She knew that Ji Yunhan was serious. He would never help someone he did not like. Even if Ji Bowen was suppressing him, he would still not listen. Moreover, would Ji Bowen really help her persuade Ji Yunhan? She was really doubtful. After all, the Ji family and her cousin were not on good terms. The snow-white walls and the faint smell of disinfectant. Qin Tingfang pushed open the door and saw the young man standing by the window. His dark hair covered his forehead. His bright eyes were filled with melancholy. His face was as pale as snow. When he saw her, the melancholy in his eyes was immediately replaced by a smile. Aunt, you're here. Qin Tingfang shook the bag in her hand and smiled. I brought you a game console today. You won't be so bored anymore. Lu Tianhao cheered. Yay, that's great. I used to want to play games but Mom wouldn't allow it. She said that it would affect my studies. Now I don't have to worry. I can play games to my heart's content. On his handsome face there was a bright smile on his face. Chen Tingfang felt her heart ache when she saw that he was pretending to be cheerful. Lil Hao was still a child. How could he not be afraid when faced with the threat of death? In order not to worry the adults, he would only show his negative emotions when he was alone. The room was very quiet. Only the sound of the game console could be heard. Wuxia looked at her son sympathetically. She quietly walked to Chen Tingfang's side and pulled her out of the ward to the end of the corridor. Tingfang, how's the discussion about the bone marrow donation going? Did Ji Yunhan agree? Chen Tingfang said awkwardly, Cousin-in-law, I tried to sound out Ji Yunhan's opinion. He's not very willing. Then what should we do? Otherwise, I'll go to Ji Bowen and ask him to persuade his son. Wu Shi's eyes are red. Now Ji Yunhan is her life-saving straw. She must grab him. Cousin-in-law, to be honest, even if you beg Ji Bowen, I'm afraid that he won't agree. After all, we have a grudge against him before. Chen Tingfang gritted her teeth and made up her mind. She said resolutely, Cousin-in-law, don't worry. I'll handle it well. Wu Shi grabbed her wrist tightly and asked anxiously, how are you going to solve it? Could it really be solved? Little Hao doesn't have much time left. We have to perform the surgery as soon as possible. Chen Tingfang hesitated for a moment, then leaned over to her ear and whispered a few words. Wu Shi was shocked. Isn't that a bad idea? Why don't we talk to them? What if they agree? What if they don't agree? Won't we alert them? We won't have any chance at all? I've already consulted the doctor. Donating bone marrow won't harm the donor. Moreover, the process is relatively simple. As long as we do it cleanly, no one will notice. But I'm still worried. I feel that it's a little too much. Chen Tingfang looked in the direction of the ward and said faintly, Cousin-in-law, compared to Little Hao's life, what's the big deal? In the end, Wu Shi was moved by her words and agreed with her idea. However, she was still worried. Therefore, when she saw Lu Jianfeng that night, she told him about Chen Tingfang's plan. In the end, she said uneasily, Jianfeng, are we really going to do this? Lu Jianfeng frowned and remained silent. He had considered asking Ji Bowen for help. However, he was a person who had been in a high position for a long time and had developed a sense of arrogance. It was really difficult for him to lower his voice and beg Ji Bowen. Moreover, he had threatened Ji Bowen before. If he were to ask him for help now, he would definitely make things difficult for him or even reject him. He massaged his temples and said slowly, Tingfang has a point. If Ji Bowen doesn't agree, we'll alert them again. It'll be very difficult to carry out our plan in secret. This meant that he agreed with Chen Tingfang's idea. Wu Shi didn't know why, but she felt relieved. She also comforted herself. Anyway, Ji Yunhan's body wouldn't be harmed, so she shouldn't worry about it. After class, Ji Yunhan was about to go to the cafeteria for lunch with his classmates when his phone suddenly rang. It was an unfamiliar number. He pressed the answer button and a middle-aged man's deep voice came from the other end of the line. Hello, is this Ji Yunhan? Yes, I am. Who is this? I'm Dr. Zheng from Second Hospital. Have you received the medical examination report that was sent to your house last time? Yes, I have. Is there a problem? Ji Yunhan looked up and gestured to his classmates who were urging him to wait. It's like this. We accidentally mixed up your blood sample with that of another examiner. Please come to the hospital today and have it rechecked. Ji Yunhan frowned. How could this be? You guys are too reckless. Dr. Zheng apologized again in a good-natured manner. Ji Yunhan had no choice but to say reluctantly, I still have class today. How about tomorrow? Alright then. 10 o'clock tomorrow morning in room 304 of Building 1. Please look for Dr. Zheng when you arrive. Ji Yunhan was speechless. What kind of lousy hospital was this? How could they mix up a blood sample? He shook his head and temporarily put the matter to the back of his mind. Then he moved closer to his desk mate, patted him on the shoulder with a smile, and went to have lunch with him. The next day was Saturday. Ji Yunhan was about to leave after lunch when Ji Yuqi stopped him and asked casually, Ahan, are you going out? Where are you going? Ji Yunhan had a bitter expression on his face. I'm so unlucky. There's nothing wrong with your medical reports. Only mine. They said there was a mistake with the blood sample. They want me to do a blood test again. I'm going to that hospital now. Ji Yuqi had already made an appointment with Lin Yushi to play golf. When she heard his words, she did not take it to heart. She smiled and waved her hand. It's your fault for being so unlucky. Hurry up and go. Come back early in the afternoon. I'll personally make soup for you to replenish the blood you've lost. Okay, I'll go first. Bye, sis. Ji Yunhan ran off like the wind. Ji Yuqi shook her head in amusement. She looked at the time and saw that it was already late. She quickly finished her breakfast and left in a hurry. Ji Yunhan found the examination room according to the address given by Dr. Zheng. A man wearing a mask and a white coat nodded at him. Then let's start now. The man first measured his blood pressure and then wanted to draw his blood. He curled his lips helplessly and rolled up his sleeves. He muttered, "Don't make a mistake this time. Although I'm a man and am not afraid of pain, drawing so much blood makes me dizzy. Don't worry, we won't make a mistake this time." The doctor comforted him with a few words and inserted a long needle into his blood vessel. He took out a large tube full of blood. He looked at the dark red blood in the syringe and felt his scalp go numb. "Come, drink some sugar water and rest." A young nurse handed him a glass of water. He said thank you and took it. After drinking it, he felt that it was a little bitter. Maybe it's because there's too much sugar. It's so sweet that it's bitter, he thought. He put the glass on the table and wanted to stand up. Suddenly he felt dizzy and his vision turned black. He quickly held onto the back of the chair and vaguely heard someone say, "Don't move. Rest for a while. You're scared of blood." His lips moved twice. He wanted to speak, but his voice seemed to be stuck in his throat. No matter how hard he tried, he could not speak. His eyelids were swollen and he slowly closed his eyes. With a thump, he fell onto the chair. Ji Yunhan slowly opened his eyes. The dazzling light pierced his eyes, causing them to ache. He reflexively closed them, then slowly opened them again. The nurse's gentle voice entered his ears. "Are you awake? You suddenly fainted. You gave us a fright." He turned his head and looked at the nurse standing at the head of the bed. "I fainted?" he asked in a daze. The nurse's eyes curved. "Yes, you fainted. You've been asleep for 2 hours. Are you okay? Do you want me to inform your family?" "I'm fine." "There's no need to inform my family." Ji Yunhan felt numb all over. It was as if he had been electrocuted. There was also a sharp pain in the back of his buttocks. He sat up with his hand on his forehead and slowly got off the bed. When he stood on the ground, he felt a sharp pain in his buttocks. He must have accidentally pulled something. Strange. He did not get an injection. Why does his buttocks hurt? He looked at the nurse in confusion. "Did you do anything to me after I fainted?" The nurse blinked quickly. "We just carried you to the bed. What's wrong? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere?" Ji Yunhan's cheeks reddened. He could not say that his buttocks hurt in front of a girl. Perhaps he had slept for too long and hurt his buttocks. He shook his head. "I'm fine. When can I receive the blood test report?" "We'll mail it to your house in 3 days." "Okay, thank you. Goodbye." He took out his phone from his trouser pocket as he walked to the door. When he saw that it was a call from his sister, he quickly dialed her number. "Sis, you were looking for me just now. What's up?" When she received his call, Ji Yuqi's car was parked in the hospital's parking lot. She opened the door and got out of the car. "An, I happened to be around the hospital, so I picked you up to go home. Are you done with your checkup?" "I'm done. I'm going down now." "That's good. I'll wait for you in the hospital garden. Come down quickly." Ji Yuqi hung up the phone and strolled around the hospital garden. 2 beautiful nurses carrying folders walked over, laughing and chatting. One of the nurses wearing glasses whispered, "You don't know yet, right? The leader with the surname Liu has transferred his son to our hospital." "You're talking about Liu Jianfeng? Oh my God, what illness does his son have? Why haven't I heard about it in the news? Are you dumb? Who is Liu Jianfeng? He definitely has to keep it a secret. How could he let the media know about his son's illness? But then again, his son is really lucky. He has acute leukemia. When he was transferred to our hospital, a volunteer was willing to donate his bone marrow. I heard that the bone marrow transplant operation will be carried out today." TSK. That volunteer, don't tell me he's aiming for their power. As long as he donates his bone marrow, he'll be the benefactor of the Liu family. Won't he be related to the Liu family in the future? Don't talk nonsense. That volunteer has a powerful background too. The nurse wearing glasses leaned over and whispered a few words in her companion's ear. Her companion immediately screamed, "What? The donor is from the Ji family?" "She'll lower your voice. Are you trying to kill me? This is a secret. You can't tell anyone. Remember, don't tell anyone." I know. Don't worry. I'm very tight-lipped. The voices of the two nurses gradually faded away. Jiuchi flashed out from behind the tree. Her face was extremely gloomy. Different images kept appearing in her mind. Ahan, if your sister Zissou has leukemia, are you willing to donate your bone marrow to her? What if it's a stranger? Will you donate? I'm so unlucky. Your medical reports are all fine except mine. They said that the blood sample was wrong and asked me to do a blood test again. What? The donor is from the G family? Several voices echoed in her ears, and different scenes lingered in her mind. Jiuchi's expression became more and more unsightly, and the light of hatred burst forth from her pitch-black eyes. She clenched her fists tightly, and a cold aura emanated from her body, causing those who approached her to shiver uncontrollably. When Ji Yunhan found her, he was frightened by her vicious gaze. He quickened his pace and walked in front of her. Concerned, he asked, "Sister, what's wrong? Are you okay?" Jiuchi suddenly turned to look at him. Her eyes were incomparably complicated. There was regret, annoyance, and fear. He touched his nose inexplicably. "Sister, what's wrong with you? Did my future brother-in-law make you angry?" She suddenly hugged him. Her arms tightly clasped on his back. Her voice was mixed with pain. "I'm sorry, Ahan. I was too careless." "Sister?" She didn't say anything. After a long time she slowly let go of him. She stared into his eyes with a serious expression. "Ahan, did anything strange happen during your checkup?" Ji Yunhan scratched his head and smiled. "Yes, I seem to have a phobia of blood. At that time the nurse miss handed me a cup of sugar water. I didn't expect that after drinking it I still fainted. According to her, I lay down for more than 2 hours." "Sugar water? Fainted?" Jiuchi's gaze turned cold. She said in a deep voice, "Other than that, do you feel uncomfortable anywhere?" Shinwu 799. Chapter 924. Cough cough. Above my butt, below my lower back, it hurts a little. Ji Yunhan did not want to talk about such a shameful place, but when he saw his sister's serious expression, he unknowingly told the truth. Jiuchi had once watched a television program that explained the knowledge of bone marrow transplants. She knew that the location of the bone marrow extraction was where Ahan felt the pain in his ilium. Qin Tingfang, Lu Jianfeng, those two bastards, how dare they treat Ahan like this? They used such a despicable method to drug Ahan and steal his bone marrow. If Lu Tianhao did not need bone marrow but a liver, a kidney, or a heart, would those two bastards also remove Ahan's internal organs without hesitation? Jiuchi exploded like a volcano. She clenched her fists and roared, "Damn it, Qin Tingfang, Lu Jianfeng, they went too far." "Sister, what are you talking about?" Ji Yunhan was confused. She suddenly grabbed his hand and dragged him to the hospital. She said angrily, "Come with me. Which doctor did the examination for you? Tell me." "Hey sister, don't drag me. I'll walk by myself. What's going on? You have to tell me clearly." Jiuchi did not answer. She clenched her teeth tightly. She was afraid that if she opened her mouth, she would not be able to resist cursing those two bastards. She dragged her brother all the way until they entered the elevator. Only then did she manage to suppress her anger. She faced her brother and told him her suspicions. "Ahan, Lu Jianfeng's son has acute leukemia and needs a bone marrow transplant. I suspect that your bone marrow matches his. And just today your bone marrow was extracted." Ji Yunhan was shocked. He widened his eyes in disbelief. "How did you know?" Jiuchi clenched her fists and told him her deduction concisely and quickly. She said, "Although it's just my speculation, it's very likely to be true. Later, I'll verify it with the doctor who extracted your blood." "The examination room." "Yes, Madam Qin. I've taken care of it. Don't worry, I'll keep it a secret." Dr. Zheng stood facing the window and spoke to the person on the other end of the phone. Suddenly, with a bang sound, the door was pushed open heavily. He turned his head in surprise and saw the two people walking in through the door. His expression changed immediately and he quickly said to the person on the other end of the phone, "I have an accident here. I'll hang up first." Dr. Zheng glanced guiltily at the expressionless Ji Yunhan before shifting his gaze to the equally expressionless Jiuchi. He gripped his phone tightly and tried to maintain a calm smile on his face. "Is there anything I can help you with? You're the Dr. Zheng who drew my brother's blood, right? I have a question for you." Jiuchi coldly stared into his eyes as if she wanted to see through his eyes and see through his internal organs. Dr. Zheng broke out in cold sweat. "I don't dare to ask." What's the question, Miss Ji? Please ask. Jiuqi looked at him coldly and said sternly, let me ask you, who gave you permission to extract my brother's bone marrow without permission? Who gave you the right to do so? Cold sweat broke out on his forehead, but his expression was calm. Miss Ji, what do you mean by that? I've never extracted your brother's bone marrow. Jiuqi said sternly, good, very good. It doesn't matter if you don't admit it. My brother's iliac bone must still have a needle hole. We can find evidence of your crime through an X-ray examination. Then she turned to Ji Yunhan. Let's do the examination now. I want those who stole your bone marrow without your permission to pay the price. Miss Ji, please wait. Dr. Zheng rushed forward and blocked their way. He said anxiously and painfully, I admit that I did extract Ji Yunhan's bone marrow, but Madam Qin told me that Ji Yunhan agreed to donate his bone marrow, so Jiuqi said sternly, did Qin Tingfang really say that? Dr. Zheng quickly explained, yes, she said that Ji Yunhan agreed to donate his bone marrow, but Mr. Ji Bowen didn't know about it. Therefore, she wanted me to collect the bone marrow this way to prevent Mr. Ji Bowen from finding out. Don't you know that Ahan is only 17 years old? He's still a minor. Even if he made the decision to donate, he would need his guardian's approval. How dare you say that you want to hide it from my father? What kind of doctor are you? It's a disgrace that your hospital has a doctor who doesn't care about professional ethics like you. Jiuqi was truly furious. She glared fiercely at him, each question louder than the last, making him unable to show his face. His face alternated between red and white, and he opened his mouth, unable to say a single word for a long time. She snorted and mocked, Qin Tingfang must have given you a lot of benefits. Also, our dear and respectable leader Lu Jianfeng must have given you benefits too. Am I right, Zheng? Doctor. Give birth. The heavy emphasis on the word doctor was like a heavy hammer that hammered Dr. Zheng's conscience. He had indeed received a lot of benefits, but the benefits had blinded him and made him forget his duty to save lives and heal the wounded. He hung his head in guilt. I'm sorry, Miss Ji, young Master Ji. I know I'm wrong. Please give me another chance. This job is really important to me. If news of him stealing the bone marrow spread, he would definitely be kicked out of the hospital. His reputation would be tainted and no other hospital would hire him. Jiuqi's eyes darkened. She slowly raised the corners of her lips and smiled brightly. Okay, I agree to let you go, but you have to promise me one thing. Dr. Zheng hurriedly said, okay, I'll agree even if it's 100 times. Jiuqi snorted. I don't need 100. My condition is simple. Don't tell Qin Tingfang and Lu Jianfeng what we know. Just tell them that everything went smoothly and no one found out about you stealing the bone marrow. Okay, I understand. I'll do as you say. On the way home, the atmosphere was heavy. Jiuqi held the steering wheel tightly with both hands and looked straight ahead. Her face was dark and she did not say a word. Ji Yunhan carefully peeked at her a few times. Seeing her sullen expression, he laughed dryly. Sis, are you still angry? Don't be angry. It's just a little bit of bone marrow. It won't do any harm to my body. Let them have it. Shut up. Jiuqi turned around and glared at him fiercely. Just bone marrow? I think you're lucky. What if they wanted your liver, kidney, or heart? Would you let them cut you up? The more she spoke, the angrier she became. She raised her arm and slapped him hard on the head. Be more careful next time. Don't just drink everything that people give you. I know, sis. You're so fierce. My butt still hurts. He covered his head pitifully like a harmless little bunny. Jiuqi's heart ached when she thought about how his bone marrow had been inexplicably extracted. However, she was stubborn and refused to put down her pride to comfort him. She continued to lecture him with a straight face. Now you know it hurts. Let's see if you still drink anything in the future. Sis, he cried with tears in his eyes. Her heart almost broke. She couldn't help but reach out and rub his head. Her voice became gentle. All right, it doesn't hurt anymore. This time I'm also at fault. I should have noticed the abnormality earlier. Don't worry. I'll get justice for you. If Lu Jianfeng told her honestly that Lu Tianhao was sick and needed Ahan to donate his bone marrow, she wouldn't refuse. She believed that Ahan wouldn't refuse either. After all, the conflict between the Ji family and Lu Jianfeng shouldn't involve Lu Tianhao. However, Lu Jianfeng shamelessly used underhanded means to steal Ahan's bone marrow. This was unacceptable to her. She wouldn't allow her brother to be bullied like this. Outside the operating room, Lu Jianfeng, Wuxia, and other relatives were waiting anxiously. Lu Tianhao had been in the operating room for more than 4 hours. They didn't know what was going on inside. To them, Every minute was torture. They're out. The doctor is out. Lu Jianfeng rushed to the doctor first. Doctor, how's my son? Don't worry. The patient's surgery was very successful. He just had surgery and his immune system is weak. He doesn't want too many people to visit him at once. Lu Jianfeng's eyes reddened. He nodded heavily. Thank you. In the ward, Lu Jianfeng and his wife saw their son who had just had surgery. He was lying among a pile of instruments. There was an 4 drip on the back of his hand. His face was pale and he hadn't woken up yet. Wuxia leaned into her husband's arms and couldn't help but cry. Lu Jianfeng hugged her shoulder and whispered, "Don't be sad. Little Hao will get better soon." Qin Tingfang, who had been waiting anxiously at home, heard that the surgery was a success. She locked herself in the room and danced with joy. On the other hand, Jiuqi got a piece of information from Liangyu. The little girl that Lu Jianfeng brought to the hospital that day was called Wang Yingying. Her mother, Wang Minghan, was a teacher at Chenxi Kindergarten. It was said that she used to live in Hanqing and had just moved to Ying City. When Jiuqi saw Wang Minghan's photo, her eyes narrowed. She couldn't believe what she saw. The woman carrying the child in the photo looked very similar to Qin Tingfang. Something flashed through her mind. She asked hurriedly, "Liangyu, what's the relationship between Wang Minghan and Lu Jianfeng?" Liangyu was silent for 2 seconds and said, "Actually, I've been secretly monitoring Wang Minghan and Lu Jianfeng. I found out that the two of them have only met once. It was when Lu Jianfeng sent Wang Yingying to Wang Minghan's place. Moreover, Lu Jianfeng stayed at her place for less than 10 minutes. The two of them seemed to be just ordinary friends." Jiuqi's gaze turned cold. She stared at the photo in her hand. She didn't believe that Lu Jianfeng and Wang Minghan's relationship wasn't that simple. Just the fact that Wang Minghan looked so similar to Qin Tingfang was very suspicious. Hongcha 866. Chapter 925. She kept thinking back to the times when Lu Jianfeng and Qin Tingfang interacted. She realized that whether it was in her previous life or this life, Lu Jianfeng was infinitely tolerant and caring towards Qin Tingfang. Sometimes, his care and concern even made people feel that it was a bit excessive. Between the two of them, was it really just a pure relationship of cousins? Perhaps it was because she had seen too much of the filth of the world, but Jiuqi's thoughts were no longer that of a young lady who didn't know the ways of the world. Just by looking at some clues she could associate some evil things with it. She thought for a moment and said in a low voice, "Liangyu, I want you to do me a favor. Continue to keep an eye on Lu Jianfeng and Wang Mingyao and..." She lowered her voice and made an outrageous request, "Help me get Wang Mingyao's hair." "Okay, no problem." After Lu Qinhao's operation, there were no signs of rejection. He recovered well. Lu Jianfeng was relieved and began to put his energy into work. He was busy every day and often went to the countryside or remote places to inspect the work. He could not go home on time. Sometimes he would only go home once every 2 or 3 days. However, he would call Wuxia every day to ask about his son's condition. Wuxia had been used to it. She had to be prepared to be alone when she married a powerful husband. In order to take care of her son, she quit her original job and stayed in the hospital almost every day to accompany her son. One day, Wuxia was carrying the chicken soup she made and was about to send it to the hospital. The phone in her pocket suddenly vibrated. She opened it and saw a message from an unknown number. "Do you want to know what your husband is busy with every day? Go to this address and you will find the answer." Wu Shui shook her head in amusement. She just thought that someone was playing a prank. She put the phone in her pocket and ignored it. About 5 minutes later, the phone vibrated again. It was a message from the same number. "Why are you scared? Poor woman who has been kept in the dark." She quickly replied, "Please don't play any more pranks on me. I'll be angry." "Ah, pranks? You are deceiving yourself." Wu Shui's fingers trembled. She quickly replied, "Who are you? What is your purpose?" After sending the message, it was like a stone sinking into the sea. She waited for a long time but did not receive a reply. Because of these inexplicable text messages, her originally good mood became gloomy. She carried the soup and walked into her son's ward. She barely managed to pull herself together, but her mind couldn't help but wander. Jin Feng was busy with work. She should believe him. However, that mysterious person's resolute and decisive words kept echoing in her ears. "Let's go and have a look. It's just a trip to prove that the mysterious man is playing a prank. Yes, he must be playing a prank." After a mental struggle, curiosity finally won out. Wuxia told her son a few words and asked the nurse to take good care of him. Then she hurried out of the hospital and drove to the place mentioned by the mysterious man. This was a newly opened amusement park in Ing City. It had a complete set of gaming facilities. Wearing a hat and brown sunglasses, Wuxia walked past a group of children and followed the address to a cold drink shop in the amusement park. Through the huge glass window she saw Lu Jianfeng sitting by the window. Even if he was wearing sunglasses as his wife, how could she not recognize him? Opposite him sat a young woman and a 7 or 8-year-old girl. When Wu Shui carefully looked at the young woman, she was so shocked that she almost screamed. She covered her mouth tightly and stared at the woman. She actually looked like Chen Tingfang. In the cold drink shop, Wang Yingying took 2 sips of fresh orange juice. Her big round eyes looked curiously at Lu Jianfeng. She said in a childish voice, "Uncle, why are you still wearing sunglasses? There's no sun here." Lu Jianfeng wore sunglasses because he didn't want others to find out his identity. Of course he couldn't explain this to a child. So, he smiled and said, "Uncle, don't you look handsome wearing sunglasses?" "Yes." "Then Uncle will always wear them to make himself look more handsome." "Oh, so that's how it is." Wang Yingying nodded as if she understood. Then she pouted and muttered, "But this way I won't be able to see Uncle's face clearly. It's such a pity." Wang Minghan rubbed her daughter's hair and gently smiled. "Even if you can't see Uncle's face clearly, Yingying can touch Uncle and let Uncle hug you. This is already very good." Wang Yingying smiled and nodded heavily. "And that's right. Uncle played with me the whole day today. I'm so happy." Lu Jianfeng was amused by her cute appearance. He reached out and rubbed her soft hair. Inadvertently, his hand touched Wang Minghan's hand. He didn't withdraw his hand but took the opportunity to hold her hand. Wang Minghan glanced at him embarrassedly and said softly, "Don't be like this. Be careful not to be seen by others." His voice was low and magnetic. "It's okay. Today belongs to the 3 of us." The sunglasses covered his eyes, but it couldn't block his burning gaze. She felt that her body was about to melt under his burning gaze. She bit her lip and shyly returned his hand. Outside the cold drinks shop, Wu Shui hid behind a pillar. Her eyes were fixed on the 2 hands that were clasped together. Her body was trembling and her mind was blank. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. She didn't know why this was happening and she didn't know what she should do. She and Lu Jianfeng were university classmates. Ever since she fell in love with him, she had been chasing after him. She thought that one day she would be able to wait for him. She waited until she was 30 years old. She waited until she was young. When she thought that she would never be able to touch him for the rest of her life, he suddenly found her and said, "Let's get married. I'll treat you well." At that moment she really felt that the whole world was bright. She was overjoyed. She was looking forward to a new life and happily married him. Then she would take care of her husband and their son and wholeheartedly be the woman behind him. He fulfilled his promise. Although their married life couldn't be considered sweet, he respected her and loved their son very much. She thought that they would be able to grow old together, but now she actually found out that he was having an affair. Her heart hurt so much as if it was being cut by a knife. Her tears were like beads of a broken string, falling down from the corners of her eyes. She looked at the cold drinks shop and saw her husband being gentle and considerate to another woman. She saw that they were like a family of 3, smiling happily. Her heart hurt so much that she almost couldn't breathe. Their son was still lying in the hospital, but he was hugging that little girl and laughing happily. Stumbling all the way back to the car, Wu Shui's tears didn't stop. In the enclosed space she couldn't control herself anymore. She covered her mouth and wailed loudly. She didn't know how long she cried, but her eyes were already swollen and difficult to open. Looking at her sorry figure in the mirror, her hair had already turned white, and she was even more sorrowful. She was almost 50 years old. Other than loving Lu Jianfeng without reservation, she seemed to have never done anything she wanted to do. For her husband, child, and family she gave up herself, but in the end what she got was her husband's betrayal. When she was supporting his parents he was rolling in the sheets with another woman. When she comforted her disappointed son by saying, "Daddy is busy," he was outside with another mother and daughter. When she couldn't sleep alone many times, when she envied other couples who were in pairs, when she was sick and needed his care, he wasn't by her side. She thought that he was busy, tried her best to be tolerant, and never made a fuss. However, the cruel reality shattered all her fantasies. The despair in her heart was like a wild vine, wrapping around her in despair. Time passed by minute, Unknowingly, the sky outside the window started to darken. She took out her phone and dialed that familiar number. "What's the matter?" The man's low voice entered her ears. She could vaguely hear a child's laughter. Her lips trembled a few times. After a few seconds of silence, she said softly, "Jianfeng, have you ever loved me? We're already an old married couple. Why are you asking such a question? Is Xiaohao okay?" He sounded a little impatient. Her lips twitched and her eyes were filled with desolation. "Okay, Xiaohao is very good. Can you come back tonight? I have something to talk to you about. I still have something to do. I can't go back tonight. I'll go back tomorrow." He didn't wait for her answer and said, "Is there anything else? If not, I'll hang up first." "Nothing." Beep, beep, beep. The sky was getting darker and darker. Bright lights decorated the city. A woman in a long dress with disheveled hair walked alone by the riverbank. She had been wandering around the riverbank for more than an hour. She was like a walking corpse without any thoughts. She was just walking mechanically and aimlessly. A car was parked not far from her. Jiuqi sat in the driver's seat, holding a pair of binoculars and staring from afar. She had sent that text message to let Wuxia know about Lu Jianfeng's affair. She didn't want to force Wuxia into a dead end. Therefore, she had been following behind Wuxia to prevent her from taking her own life. After waiting for more than 10 minutes, Wuxia finally left the riverbank and returned to the car. After she started the car, Jiuqi quickly followed. Wuxia drove to the hospital to visit her son. Just as she opened the door to the ward, her son immediately looked up and said unhappily, "Mom, where did you go this afternoon? I called your phone but it was turned off. I was so worried about you." She walked to his side, hugged him with both hands and said softly, "Xiaohao, don't worry. Mom will be fine. Even if it's for you, Mom will be fine." "Mom, you're so strange today. Are you hiding something from me?" Awesome novel Xinwu 799. Chapter 926. Lu Qianhao was very sensitive. He raised his head and stared at her face, trying to find clues from her face. Wuxia smiled and rubbed his head. "What can I hide from you? I'm just a little tired. Are you feeling unwell today?" "I'm fine, Mom. Since you're not feeling well, you should go home and rest. There are nurses taking care of me in the hospital. You don't have to worry." "Okay." She caressed her son's cheek. Her son and her husband looked alike. Looking at him was like looking at her husband when he was young. Her heart, which was numb from the pain, twitched again. "At night. Who are you? What's your purpose for letting me see that?" Jiuqi came out of the bathroom and saw a message on her disposable SIM card. It was from Wuxia. She smiled, picked up the phone and replied, "I'm someone close to you. I just feel sorry for you, so I let you find out the truth." "I don't believe you're so kind. Tell me what you're trying to do." Jiuqi did not follow her train of thought. Instead, she changed the topic. "Aren't you curious about the little girl's background?" The person on the other side of the phone was silent for a long time. It was so long that Jiuqi almost fell asleep. Suddenly, she heard the sound of a message and woke her up. "That child, is she really his illegitimate daughter?" Seeing the message, Jiuqi sighed. Liang Yu took Wang Yingying's hair and compared her DNA with Lu Tianhao's. The results showed that they were close relatives and that they had the same father. She guessed that Lu Jianfeng brought Wang Yingying to the hospital to match her bone marrow with Lu Tianhao's. Unfortunately, the match was not successful. That was why Lu Jianfeng chose to trick Han. Jiuqi's fingers slid and replied slowly, "Yes, he had an affair behind your back for 10 years. 10 years? 10 years was enough for a person to fall in love with another person. It was also enough for a person to age." Wu Shi's love for Lu Jianfeng and her child was condensed in each of her white hairs. However, the truth was always so cruel. Even if you spent your whole life, you could not warm a man's heart. Jiuqi could imagine her despair at this moment. It was just like how she felt when she fell off the cliff in her previous life. She was in so much pain that she wished she was dead. However, only by crossing that hurdle could she be reborn. So Wu Shi, do your best. Your child is still waiting for you. The text message did not ring for a long time. Jiuqi lay in bed, tossing and turning, unable to fall asleep. She thought for a while and sent another text to Wu Shi. "You've given him more than 20 years of your youth. It's time for you to make plans for yourself and your child. A mother is strong because of her child. I believe you can stand up again." Wu Shi stared blankly at the ceiling. Her eyes were dry and painful and she could no longer shed tears. She thought about many things. She thought about her past, about her love that was like a moth darting into a flame, about her husband's betrayal, and about her child's future. That mysterious person was right. She had to be strong. Even if her heart was riddled with holes, she had to be strong because Lil Hao still needed her protection. She did not sleep the entire night. She looked even more haggard in the mirror. Even the crow's feet at the corners of her eyes seemed to have deepened. She sighed and put on some light makeup to cover the dark circles under her eyes and the pimples that suddenly appeared on her face. Then she opened her wardrobe and found a long, colorful dress that she had not worn in a long time. Finally, she tied up her long hair. At last, she did not look so lifeless. Lu Jianfeng came back. Wu Shi's gaze slowly slid across his face and finally landed on him. He had changed his clothes. The clothes he was wearing now were not the ones she bought for him. It seemed that he had stayed over at that woman's place last night. He came home wearing different clothes. This kind of thing had happened before, but she trusted him too much and never suspected it. The corner of her lips stiffened. She lowered her head and said softly, "You're back. Have you had breakfast?" "I've eaten. Last night you said that you had something to discuss with me. What is it?" Lu Jianfeng took off his coat and casually hung it on the hanger. Her nails dug into her palms. Yesterday she was too agitated and wanted to talk to him about the divorce. However, after a night of consideration, she changed her mind. She slowly raised her head and looked at him with a calm gaze. She said indifferently, "I want to open a flower shop. What do you think?" "Open a flower shop?" Lu Jianfeng sat on the sofa and tapped his fingers on the armrest. His brows were slightly furrowed. "Why did you suddenly have this idea?" Wu Shi sat across from him and poured a cup of tea in front of him. She said indifferently, "Lil Hao's health is getting better and will recover soon. I will also have more free time. It's not a good idea to do nothing at home every day. So, I want to open a flower shop. It's not important whether I make money or not. I just want to have something to do." Lu Jianfeng's brows furrowed even tighter. "If news of you opening a flower shop gets out, where will my face go? If you feel bored, you can go shopping with the ladies in the courtyard and do some beauty treatments. Isn't that good? Beauty treatments?" When she was 20 years old, he wouldn't even look at her. Now that she was in her 40s, even if she dressed herself up like a fairy, he wouldn't care. Wu Shi didn't want to waste time on those boring things. She smiled slightly. "When we got married, you said that you would respect my opinion. Right now, I only have one idea, and that is to open a flower shop. Can't you respect my opinion for once? I don't interact with the ladies of the officials. They don't know me, so you don't have to worry about me embarrassing you in front of your subordinates." She rarely spoke to him in such a tone. Lu Jianfeng suddenly felt that he didn't know her. He thought for a moment and said in a deep voice, "If you insist on opening a flower shop, then I won't stop you. You have to take care of your family and Lil Hao. Don't neglect them because of work." She was still smiling. "I won't. After all, I'm not Mayor Lu. I'm not that busy." Lu Jianfeng was stung by her words and felt a little uncomfortable. He said with a cold face, "I'm busy with work. I thought you would understand." "I understand very well." She stood up and looked at him condescendingly. She said lightly, "I'm going to the hospital to accompany Lil Hao. If you're free, you should go and see him. He asked about you yesterday." She felt that she owed her only son. Lu Jianfeng stood up as well. "I'll go with you." Lu Tianhao was very happy to see his parents appear at the same time. Wu Shi saw the bright smile on his face and felt sad. She secretly made up her mind that no matter what happened between her and Lu Jianfeng, she would protect her son. Cousin-in-law, you're all here." Qin Tingfang walked into the ward with fruits and supplements in her hands. Lu Jianfeng saw her and a warm smile appeared in his deep eyes. Wu Shi felt as if she had swallowed a fly. She was not a fool. Her husband's lover looked so much like Qin Tingfang. Of course she could guess the reason. Since she met her husband in university, she had never seen him in a relationship with another girl. After he started working, he was even more busy with work and had never been involved in any scandals. She thought that he was ambitious and would not talk about relationships. In the end, she did not expect that he already had someone in his heart. That person was his biological cousin. Taboo incest. Such a relationship was disgusting. Wu Shi pressed her right hand on her stomach and forced a smile. "Tingfang is here." After Qin Tingfang greeted Lu Jianfeng and his wife, her eyes fell on Lu Tianhao. She smiled and said, "Little Hao, you look so good today. Are you too happy to see Mom, Dad, and Auntie?" "Yes, Auntie. The game console you gave me is so fun. What good things did you bring for me today? You little brat, you really don't hold back." But fortunately I came prepared. Dang dang dang. Look at what this is. It's the latest iPhone. There are many fun games downloaded in it. I'm so touched. Auntie, you are so good to me. Seeing that his son was getting along well with Chen Tingfang, Lu Jianfeng's smile deepened. He patted his son's shoulder, indicating that he should not be too naughty. Wuxia felt even more uncomfortable. She took the fruit plate and said that she was going to wash the fruits. She hurriedly left the strange scene. In the following days, Wuxia's attitude towards Chen Tingfang slowly changed. She was not as intimate as before, only polite and distant. However, no one except herself noticed. With her efforts, the flower shop opened for business. She recruited 2 young girls to manage the flower shop, and she became the boss behind the scenes. With the flower shop on the right track, she gradually focused all her attention on her career and her son. As for her husband, he was just a decoration. She did not care what he did as long as he did not make a scene in front of her. Jianghu secretly observed for a long time. Seeing that Wu Shuyi had walked out of the pain of her husband's affair, she decided to start the second step of her plan. She laid on Shenji's chest, fiddling with a large stack of photos in her hand. She planned to pick out a few to send to Lu Jianfeng's mistress, Wang Menghan. Shenji put the report in his hand on the coffee table, pinched her nose and chuckled. Why do you have to go through so much trouble? Just send the photos to the TV station and let Lu Jianfeng lose face in front of the whole city. Isn't that good? Jianghu pretended to be mature inside. Although I hate scumbags and mistresses and really want to teach them a lesson, the first wife is innocent after all. Before Wu Shuyi is mentally prepared, if we rashly spread the news of Lu Jianfeng's infidelity to the whole city, what if she can't figure it out and walks into a dead end? Although I've waited for a long time and wasted a lot of time, I think it's worth it. At the very least, there was one less pitiful wife in the world who was heartbroken because of her husband's affair. My Chi-Chi, you're so kind. Shenji bent down and kissed her hair. She found it funny. I'm not kind, not at all, because I'm about to deal with scumbags and mistresses. Awesome novel, Songshu 566. Chapter 927. Although the child of the mistress was innocent, this would not stop her from taking action. However, she would do her best to protect the child from being attacked by the media. You don't need to be kind when dealing with bad people. Shenji stroked her hair comfortingly. He loved her like this, daring to love and hate, decisive and brave. Jianghu put aside the photo she had chosen and reached out to wrap her arms around his neck. She kissed him on the lips and smiled sweetly. In this world, only you can accept me unconditionally. Of course, I'm your husband. He hugged her tightly and deepened the kiss. After a long while, she lay in his arms and said softly, Aja, the 2-month deadline is almost up. How are your arrangements going? Do you have a chance of winning against Xinyu? Previously, Shenji had mobilized the board of directors to set off a wave of opposition against Xinyu. In the end, under Xin Jianhao's mediation, the board of directors proposed a 2-month deadline. Whoever did better between Shenji and Xinyu would become the new CEO of the Xin Group. I'll let you see Xinyu suffer a crushing defeat. He stared into her eyes, his tone full of confidence. She smiled. I'm looking forward to it. While Jianghu was busy taking revenge on Lu Jianfeng, Shenji was not idle either. The game between him and Xinyu had reached its peak. The board meeting on Monday would decide which of the two of them would take on the big responsibility. In the G Group's meeting room, there was a fierce debate going on. The side supporting Xinyu took out the results he had done in the past few months and tried their best to encourage the board of directors to support him. Shenji was expressionless as he stared coldly at the actions of Xinyu and the others. When Xin Jianhao suggested that everyone vote, Shenji suddenly turned his head and nodded at his assistant. The assistant hurriedly stepped forward and distributed the documents in his arms to the directors one by one. When everyone was looking at the documents curiously, Shenji placed his hands on the conference table. His handsome face and deep cold eyes gave people a sense of oppression. His voice was slightly deep, like a sharp sword cutting through ice, cold and lonely. Everyone, what you are holding in your hands is the financial statement for the last quarter. Xin Jianhao frowned unhappily. Haven't we already seen the last quarter's financial report? Shenji looked up at him. His gaze was calm and emotionless. This is the real financial statement. Xin Jianhao's expression changed. What do you mean? The corners of Shenji's lips curled up slightly, and his gaze was calm. It literally means that the first report you saw was embellished by someone and increased the profit by 10%. In addition, Hengyang Technology, which Xinyu had proposed to acquire, was still in a state of loss. It was not the 3 million monthly profit that was reported in the report. Now, what you are holding in your hands is the real financial statement. Everyone burst into an uproar as if a pot had exploded. One by one, they buried their heads and carefully flipped through the report. Qinyu's face was ashen. He suddenly slammed the table and angrily said, "Qinzhi, don't talk nonsense. The report I sent to everyone just now is the real account. This one is fake. Since we each have our own version of the story and the directors can't tell the truth, I will invite a witness to prove what I said." It was a casual sentence, as if they were discussing what to eat for breakfast. However, his deep and cold eyes revealed an unquestionable toughness. After he finished speaking, the door of the conference room was pushed open. 3 men in black suits carrying briefcases walked in. The one walking in front was a foreigner with a cold face. Qinyuan stood up and politely shook hands with him. Then he introduced him to everyone. "This is Mr. Mike, the chief auditor of PricewaterhouseCoopers. He has audited the accounts of the top 10 companies in the world and has never made any mistakes. Today I invite Mr. Mike here. He will tell us which financial statement is the real one." After listening to Qinyuan's words, Qinyu's face turned ugly. He knew Mike. Mike was known as the Sherlock Holmes of the auditing industry. As long as there were false accounts or omissions, as long as they passed through his hands, they would be exposed. In addition, Mike had another nickname, the Iron Mask Killer. It means that no one can buy him. He only works for the boss who hired him. Xinyu had a premonition that he had fallen into Qinyu's hands this time. The audit work would last for 3 days. Therefore, the board meeting was suspended and postponed until the provincial results came out. At the end of the meeting, everyone left with a belly full of thoughts. Xinyu was full of hostility. He blocked Qinyuan at the door of the conference room. His fierce and cold eyes were filled with hatred. He wanted to tear Qinyuan apart. "Qinyuan, your methods are really brilliant." Qinyuan's expression was indifferent. He pushed Qinyu's hand away from his collar. Then he used his finger to lightly flick the place where Xinyu had grabbed him. He said indifferently, "Same here. To be able to think of falsifying the accounts, your methods are also very superb. Moreover, it is very despicable." Qinyu's face froze. He had the urge to pounce on him and wring his neck. He gritted his teeth and said, "My assistant is one of your people. When did you arrange for him to be by my side?" That's right. This was the thing that made him most angry. He was actually betrayed by the people around him. Only his assistant and the financial director knew that he had falsified the accounts. The financial director was his biological uncle. Of course, it was impossible for him to betray him. Then the only person who could be judged was his assistant. The corner of Qinyuan's mouth curled up slightly. His tone was light, as if he was disdainful. "When you were just promoted to CO, I knew your every move in the Xin group like the back of my hand." Xinyu was so angry that he was about to vomit blood. This feeling of being despised and completely suppressed was simply terrible. "Excuse me, I'm very busy." Qinyu's expression was cold as he threw out these words. He passed by him and directly left his sight. Xinyu was so angry that he punched the wall. His malicious eyes stared at the man who had disappeared into the distance. In his heart, he had already torn him into pieces. Qinyuan specially arranged an office for Mike and his 2 assistants. He also gave the 3 of them special privileges. As long as the 3 of them needed relevant information, the company's employees had to cooperate. The 3 of them ate and stayed in a 5-star hotel. Qinyuan sent several bodyguards to secretly protect their safety in case Xinyu became desperate and threatened their personal safety. During the 3-day audit, all the company's executives were tense, especially Xinyu and Jianghu. They anxiously discussed countermeasures. In the end, they decided to start with the directors of the board of directors. As long as they could get the majority of people to stand on their side, even if Xinyu found out about the falsification of the accounts, it would be useless. Xinyu racked his brains and used all kinds of methods to coerce the directors. In the end, there were finally 2 people who had originally remained neutral who agreed to support him. Finally, the day of the final decision had arrived. In the huge conference room, everyone present was affectionate and serious as they focused on the direction of Mike. Mike took the audit results from his assistant and announced in English, "After the review, the financial statements of the Xin Group have a phenomenon of false reporting of profits." Mr. Xinyu advocated the acquisition of Hengyang Technology, which had a total loss of 1.27 million last quarter. In addition, the financial director misappropriated public funds amounting to 12 million. Everyone was shocked. Shenjia had mentioned the false reporting of profits in the last meeting, so they were not very surprised. They were surprised that the financial director, Tao Mingliang, had misappropriated public funds amounting to 10 million. Xin Jianhao and Xin Yu were also very surprised. Tao Mingliang was Xin Jianhao's brother-in-law and Xin Yu's biological uncle. How could he do such a thing? Everyone present could not believe it. They either whispered to each other or shook their heads and sighed. Xin Jianhao and his son were shocked and angry at the same time. Only Shenjia remained unmoved. His expression was as usual. His dark eyes were like a deep pool that had been silent for thousands of years. No matter if it was a breeze or a storm, it would not cause the slightest ripple. Shenjia's cold eyes slowly looked around. His cold voice was slightly low. Now the matter is very clear. I ask everyone to make the wisest judgment and start voting. They implemented a simple secret ballot. The secretary collected all the votes. The assistant was responsible for counting the votes. The results showed that Xin Yu and Shenjia were tied. Xin Yu's heart was finally at ease. He raised his chin, looked around and said proudly, "The result is that Shenjia and I are tied. Everyone, what should we do now?" Shenjia said slowly, "It's easy because I haven't started voting yet." Xin Yu sneered. "Have you forgotten that we are candidates? We are not qualified to vote." Shenjia looked up at him and said indifferently, "As a candidate, I am not qualified to vote. But as the owner of 20% of the shares, I have the absolute right to speak." Shen Yu could not hold back and retorted loudly, 20% of the shares? You are lying through your teeth. We all know that you only have 10% of the shares in your hands. Shenjia's lips curled. Zhongxin Technology Corporation has acquired 10% of the shares from Wang Fuhai. And I am the chairman of Zhongxin Technology Corporation. In my hands, I now have 20% of the shares of the Shin Group. Even if I want to acquire the Shin Group, it is just a matter of words. The meeting room was once again in an uproar. Xin Jianhao was so angry that his face and neck were red. Acquire the Shin Group? This was definitely a threat. He was so angry that he was speechless. Was that bastard his son? Why did he always go against him and even want to ruin his family business? He really wanted to strangle his eldest son to death. Xin Yu felt like he was struck by lightning. There was only one voice that kept echoing in his mind. The chairman of Zhongxin Technology Corporation. If *CK was Shenjia still human? When Zhongxin Technology Corporation was established, he was still abroad. Was his ability really that amazing? Xinwu 799. Chapter 928. No matter how much Xin Jianhao and his son objected, they couldn't stop Shenjia's determination to change the dynasty. With the support of the other half of the people, he walked up to the throne of Shin Group's CEO. A new broom sweeps clean. The first person he targeted was Xin Yu's uncle, Tao Mingliang. In fact, Shenjia already knew about Tao Mingliang's embezzlement. He didn't punish him previously because he was waiting for him to cause trouble for Xin Jianhao and his son. That way he could take them down in one fell swoop. Xin Yu was demoted to a department manager because of misreporting profits, abuse of power and other problems. Even if Xin Jianhao held on to the position of CEO, he was like a tiger without its teeth and could no longer be awe-inspiring. When Shenjia was promoted to the position of CEO of Shin Group and the merger of Shin Group and Zhongxian Technology, these two news dominated the headlines of the newspapers. Jiuqi's revenge against Lu Jianfeng also officially began. Wuxia was so disgusted that she wanted to vomit. The woman sitting opposite her had a face that was similar to Chen Tingfang's. She was holding a handkerchief in her small, fair hand, covering the corner of her mouth as she sobbed and complained tearfully, as if Wuxia had done something wrong to her. The woman had been crying for more than half an hour. From her crying, Wuxia found out that her name was Wang Menghan. She used to be a teacher at a primary school in Hanqing. When Lu Jianfeng came to her school for an inspection, the two of them met for the first time. The second time they met was when she was being harassed by some hooligans. Lu Jianfeng appeared like a god and saved her. Hence, in order to repay him for saving her life, the two of them had their first date. "Sister, please sister. I beg you to forgive Ah Feng. Everything is my fault. I shouldn't have fallen in love with him. I know it's wrong of me to do this, but I really can't control myself. Sister, Ah Feng's career is taking off now. Please don't ruin him. If you have any dissatisfaction you can take it out on me." She kept calling him Feng as if she was afraid that others wouldn't know how much they loved each other. Seeing that Wu Shui was unmoved, Wang Minghan simply knelt down in front of her. Tears streamed down her face as she cried miserably, "Elder sister, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have interfered in your relationship when your relationship wasn't good. But when it comes to matters of the heart, it's really not something we can control. We truly love each other. Elder sister, please forgive us this time for the sake of the child." This coffee shop was very famous and there were many customers every day. Even though they were in a half-closed private room, Wang Minghan's crying voice could still be clearly heard in the private room next door. Their movements attracted the attention of many people, and a few customers even intentionally or unintentionally looked in their direction. Wu Shui's lips curled up mockingly. This woman really knew how to pick a place. Did she think that she wouldn't make things difficult for her in front of so many people? She had originally planned to maintain a harmonious relationship with Lu Jianfeng on the surface and create a normal environment for her son to grow up in. But she didn't expect that the mistress couldn't hold it in and took the initiative to come in front of her to cause trouble. Did she really think that she was a soft persimmon? Wu Shui ignored the woman kneeling on the floor and took a sip of her coffee. She also ignored the gazes of the people around her. When you have been hurt to the extreme, when you are in extreme despair, nothing can hurt you anymore. Sister, I don't ask for your forgiveness, but please forgive Ah Feng. As long as you are willing to forgive him, I can go far away and never come into contact with him again. Wang Minghan raised her face full of tears, looking very pitiful. But that pair of charming phoenix eyes revealed a reluctant expression, causing the lecherous men around her to feel pity for her. They felt that the first wife was too arrogant and heartless, and secretly criticized her. No wonder the first wife was abandoned by her husband. Wu Shui didn't know what the lecherous men around her were thinking, and of course she didn't care what they thought. She slowly placed the coffee cup on the table, lowered her eyes to look at Wang Minghan, and said indifferently, "Miss Wang, I want to correct 3 things. Firstly, I am the only daughter in my family, and I don't have a sister like you. Secondly, I don't want to know about the mess between the two of you, so don't cry in front of me about how the two of you met and how much you love each other. Lastly, I won't divorce my husband, and I won't make the matter between the two of you known to everyone. So please don't say anything about me letting him off." Wang Minghan stopped crying and she looked at Wu Shui in confusion. That dazed look of hers was like a little white rabbit and she looked especially pitiful. "Sister, oh no Mrs. Lu, I didn't know. I really didn't know that crying in front of you would cause you trouble. I'm really sorry." It had to be said that Wang Minghan was a woman who knew when to yield and when not to. She calmly stood up from the floor and sat back in her seat, as if the person who was crying on the floor wasn't her. She took out a stack of photos from her handbag and handed it to Wu Shui and said pitifully, "Mrs. Lu, you really won't make things difficult for Ah Feng? But if you won't make things difficult for him, then why did you mail these photos to me?" Wu Shui's eyebrows twitched. She didn't need to look at the photos to know what the content was. She despised them and didn't want to come into contact with those things. But Wang Minghan stuffed one of the photos into her hands and said with tears in her eyes, "Mrs. Lu, did I misunderstand what you wrote on this photo? You really won't make things difficult for Ah Feng and me?" Wu Shui was forced to flip the photo over. On the back of the photo there was a delicate and strong handwriting. "I know about the matter between the two of you. If you really love him, please leave him." This tone really sounded like a letter from a wife to a mistress. Wu Shui looked at the delicate handwriting and frowned, but she quickly relaxed. She thought that she had guessed who wrote it. It must be the mysterious person who sent her the message. Her feelings towards the mysterious person were very complicated. She resented the other party for exposing her seemingly harmonious life, but she was also grateful that the other party had saved her from a false love. And now she was very curious. Who was the other party? What did they want to do? Why did they warn the mistress after warning her? She lowered her eyes and pondered. Wang Minghan's sobbing sounded in her ears again. "Mrs. Lu, whether you did it or not, I am very grateful for your magnanimity. Thank you for your understanding." "Understanding?" Wu Shui raised her eyebrows sarcastically. "When did I say that I would forgive you?" Wang Minghan said hesitantly, "But you just said that you wouldn't make things difficult for us." Wu Shui said coldly, "I only said that I wouldn't make things difficult for you. I didn't say that I would forgive you. Please don't act on your own." "I'm sorry. It's all my fault. Please forgive me, okay? I'm really sad. I didn't want it to be like this. As long as you are willing to forgive me, even if you want me to leave him, I can accept it." Ah, what great true love. Then leave him. At the same time, go to the TV station to publicly apologize and promise that you will never seduce my husband again. What do you think of my suggestion? Mrs. Liu. Wang Minghan stammered. Didn't she say that she wouldn't make things difficult for her in phone? Why did she want her to go to the TV station to publicly apologize? Wasn't that a slap to Feng's face? Wu Shui was already on the verge of exploding. As a wife, her husband was having a mistress outside. She was already very hurt. For the sake of her family, she was willing to maintain harmony on the surface. However, the mistress didn't think so. She wanted nothing more than to force her to divorce. She was furious. When she spoke, she could no longer hold back her anger. She stared at Wang Minghan's disgusting face and said sternly, "You specially invited me out and knelt on the ground to beg for my forgiveness. So, it was all talk and no action?" Wang Minghan shrunk her neck as if she was frightened by her anger. She appeared weak and pitiful. "No, sister. Listen to me. I really want to seek your forgiveness. Stop." Wu Shui raised her hand and interrupted her. She said coldly, "I don't see any regret in your actions at all. Or rather, you just want to cry in front of me, kneel down, and beg for forgiveness so that you can comfort your conscience. Then, you can be with my husband with a clear conscience and no longer have to bear any moral burden?" "No, it's really not. I'm sincere. Shut up. I don't want to talk to you anymore. Talking to a shameless woman like you is lowering my status and my style. You can live well with your true love. However, don't expect me to divorce him. I'm his wife. Even if he doesn't love me, he has to give me and my son some dignity." Wu Shui stood up and walked out of the cafe. Wang Minghan didn't care about how many people were staring at her in public. She stood up and shouted pitifully, "Sister, he doesn't love you at all. What's the point of you tying him up like this?" She had been Lu Jianfeng's mistress for 10 years and had given birth to Yingying for him. She had never fought with him or forced him to divorce. However, this didn't mean that she didn't have any selfish motives. On the contrary, she really wanted to become his wife. She really wanted Yingying to call him father, and not uncle. However, she was a smart woman. She knew that doing so would arouse Lu Jianfeng's disgust, so she had been very obedient and listened to his arrangements. She was like a beast hibernating in the dark, waiting for the right time to come. This time, when Wu Shui sent her the photos, she saw hope. She thought that as long as Wu Shui took the initiative to divorce Lu Jianfeng, she would have a chance to become his wife. She had asked Wu Shui out because she wanted to use her and Lu Jianfeng's love to defeat her. She wanted to make her panic and destroy her own Great Wall. She didn't expect Wu Shui to be so powerful. She was able to counter her every move and force her into a desperate situation. Come and see. Songshu 566. Chapter 929. Wang Minghan shouted in a moment of desperation. She realized that everyone in the cafe was looking at her with disdain. She clenched her fists and bit her lips to hold back her tears. She looked straight at Wu Shui as if she was expecting her to say something like, "I don't want that man anymore. You can go ahead." Wu Shui looked back at her expressionlessly. She only felt that the woman in front of her was extremely disgusting. She had never seen such a cheap woman. Thanks to this woman, Wu Shui also started to hate Qin Tingfang's face. Wu Shui was too lazy to walk to her side and smell the B***tisich on her. She simply stood where she was and said calmly and slowly, "You said that you are a teacher, but I really doubt what kind of students you can teach. Shameless, unethical, and immoral. Do you deserve the great title of Engineer of Human Souls? I feel sad for your students and ashamed for your daughter. Regardless of whether I have feelings for my husband or not, as long as we're not divorced, you have no right to interfere. You also have no right to stand in front of me and say those words just now. Take care of yourself and never see you again." With that, she turned around and left, leaving behind an elegant and cold back view. In the cafe, a man in a black suit and gold-rimmed glasses clapped his hands and sighed. This first wife is really a good woman with wisdom and self-restraint. Her husband must be blind to find such a mistress. The beautiful woman sitting opposite the man teased, "Didn't you just say that the mistress is beautiful? So what if she's beautiful? She's full of vulgarity and narrow-minded. Compared to the first wife, she's just an unremarkable wild chrysanthemum." The criticism of the mistress grew louder and louder. Wang Minghan was ashamed and sad. Big drops of tears fell down. She didn't dare to stay any longer and grabbed her handbag to escape. After Wang Minghan fled in embarrassment, The customers in the coffee shop were still enthusiastic and talked about the story of the battle between the mistress and the ex-wife. The man who had applauded Wuxia just now was fiddling with a small camera in his hand. Jiuqi, who was sitting opposite him, took off the sunglasses on the bridge of her nose and chuckled. "How was it? Did you get it?" Liang Yu passed the camera to her and raised his eyebrows. "Look, my skills are professional." Jiuqi picked up the camera and flipped through it. She smiled with satisfaction. "Very good. Now that I have this, I want Lu Jianfeng and that mistress to lose their reputation." Liang Yu adjusted his glasses and chuckled. "You seem to hate mistresses?" Jiuqi leaned back in her chair leisurely. "But of course, those bastards who have affairs are worse than mistresses." "And? That?" What Lu Jianfeng cared about most was his power. If he lost his status, power, and money, he would not be able to be so arrogant. Secondly, the one he truly loved was Qin Tingfang. If his abnormal love was exposed to the public, it would definitely hurt the one he truly loved. It would lead to the disdain of the world, and he might even be betrayed by his friends and family. In the end, as a father, it was impossible for him to maintain his dignity in front of his children. He would let his children see what kind of scum he was. Although it might be a little cruel to Lu Tianhao and Wang Yingying, Lu Jianfeng should have expected that day to come when he did all that. An online news article titled, "Mistress Kneels and Cries in a Coffee Shop, Claiming True Love and Begging the First Wife for Her Blessings," quickly became popular and made the headlines of social news. The eyewitness even uploaded a 10-minute-long video. In the video, the mistress was lovely and moving. She knelt in front of the first wife and begged for forgiveness. She kept talking about the love story between her and the first wife's husband. Many female netizens stood up and scolded her, saying that the mistress was not begging for forgiveness at all. She was clearly demonstrating her power. There were also many male netizens who supported the first wife. They said that the first wife was very magnanimous and rational. She was also very well-mannered. She was way better than the mistress. This online news was quite popular. In the end, it made it to the TV news and was shown to the people of Ing City during the prime time. A rather popular program about relationships between men and women also started a heated discussion with this topic. At the scene of the program, the audience actively participated in the interaction and scolded the mistress. Just when the situation was getting out of hand, a guest suddenly said, "I wonder if everyone feels that the mistress looks very familiar?" The host was famous for his iron mouth. He said without hesitation, "After hearing what you said, I also realized that the mistress in the news looks very similar to a certain rich man's wife." The guest joked, "I wonder who the cheating husband is? Don't tell me that it involves another rich man's secret?" Just when the guests were joking with the host, a call came in. A member of the audience revealed that the mistress in the news was a kindergarten teacher. She was the mistress of a high-ranking official. He also revealed that the high-ranking official had been keeping her as his mistress for 10 years. Hearing this news, the guests at the scene were collectively silent for a few seconds. They started to worry that the high-ranking official had seen through their mouths. They were worried that the high-ranking official would take revenge on them. On the other hand, Lu Jianfeng did watch this episode of the talk show. The worst thing was that he was watching it with his wife and child. His son's body was gradually recovering. The couple took him home and the family finally had a reunion dinner. After the meal, his wife turned on the TV and randomly picked a channel. Unexpectedly, in less than 2 minutes, the program played the video of his wife and Wang Menghan talking at the cafe. Seeing Wang Menghan kneeling and crying in the video and hearing his wife's cold and rational words, Lu Jianfeng was so angry that the veins on his forehead bulged. His fingers were trembling. He grabbed the remote control and quickly changed the channel. In the living room, the atmosphere was strange. No one spoke. Only the female lead of the bitter drama on the TV was crying and yelling, "I gave birth to your children. I gave up my career for you. I gave up my youth for you. Why did you do something that betrayed me?" Look, there were so many betrayed loves in this world. There were so many hurt wives. How ironic. Wuxia admired herself. In this situation she could not help but laugh. However, in the end, her face was covered with tears. Only bitterness flowed into the corner of her mouth. Lu Tianhao felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He was dumbfounded and his mind went blank. After a long while, he turned his head stiffly and looked at his father and then at his mother. He said dryly, "Mom, the woman in the video looks a lot like you." At this point there was no need to pretend anymore. Wuxia smiled with tears and rubbed his head. "Silly son, the woman in the video is your mom. Lu Qianhao suddenly became agitated. He jumped up from the sofa and held his head as he yelled, "No, the people in the TV station must have made a mistake. Mom, you must have made a mistake too. I don't believe it's true." After saying that, he quickly turned around and ran toward the door. Wuxia was the first to react. She quickly chased after him and called her son's name, trying to stop him. Lu Jianfeng was stunned for a moment and quickly chased after him. Lu Qianhao's mind was in a mess. He tried to convince himself that the video on the TV was not real. His father, the father he respected since he was young, had never cheated on his mother. There was no mistress who made trouble for his mother. However, in front of him, there was a woman's face that looked very similar to his aunt. That woman was crying and begging for his mother's forgiveness. He felt that his world had collapsed. His father, who had taught him to keep himself clean and to distinguish right from wrong, had an affair. Moreover, that mistress had the face of his aunt. Could it be that his father and his aunt? Stop thinking about it, Lu Qianhao. You can't think about it anymore. He was about to go crazy. He used his right hand to hit his head and sprinted on the road. Only this extreme speed could make him temporarily forget about those disgusting thoughts. "Little Hao, come back. Don't run anymore. Little Hao, don't run anymore. Mom is begging you. Calm down." The night was blurry and the lights were dim. His parents' hurried voices came from behind him. Lu Qianhao turned a deaf ear to them. Or rather, he could not hear anything. There was only one thought in his mind, which was to run faster, and get away from this disgusting place. Even if he was smart and precocious, he was still a 17-year-old boy. It was the time for him to shape his worldview and outlook on life. His father, who he had always respected, was a high-ranking official in Ying City. In his heart he was like a god. Now that such a scandal had happened and hurt his poor mother, he could not accept it and could not forgive him. He ran very fast, and the tears at the corners of his eyes had long been dried by the wind. The whistling of the wind blew past his ears, stinging his cheeks. He wanted to blend himself into the darkness and escape the cruel reality. He ran towards the darkest road. At this moment, a blinding light shot from the corner. He instinctively used his arm to shield his eyes. Accompanied by the screeching sound of brakes, his body was sent flying and landed on the cement road with a loud bang. Little Hao. The moment he lost consciousness, he heard his parents' heart-wrenching screams. Welfare Hongcha 866. Chapter 930. The lights in the operating room were still on. In the corridor of the hospital, Wuxia sat on the bench with her arms crossed. Her body was trembling. The scene of Lu Jianfeng being hit by the car kept replaying in her mind. His blood stained the road red, and it also soaked her feelings for Lu Jianfeng. Lu Jianfeng sat beside her. His tall and straight body was very tense, like a stone statue. His heart felt like it was being stabbed by a knife. He saw his son get into a car accident because of him. This kind of shock, this kind of pain, it was hard to describe. He turned his head stiffly and saw his wife in a daze. He wanted to hug her and comfort her. Just as he reached out before he could touch her, she screamed, "Don't touch me. Go away." His hand froze in midair. There was no going back between them. Even though he was starting to regret it. The melodious ringtone of the phone rang. It was especially clear in the quiet corridor. Lu Jianfeng retracted his hand and took out the phone in his pocket. Seeing the caller ID, he hesitated for a second and did not answer. He turned off the phone. Wuxia looked at him expressionlessly. She didn't need to say anything to know who was on the phone. She said coldly, "Don't you need to answer? Maybe she has something important to tell you." Lu Jianfeng's face darkened. His voice was low and hoarse. I'm sorry." Sorry? Is a simple apology enough to pay off the debt you owe me? Your feelings are really cheap. Even though she was secretly warning herself to stop talking nonsense with him, but in the face of his heartlessness, she couldn't help but want to ridicule him. Lu Jianfeng's lips moved. He wanted to say something, but the door of the operating room suddenly opened. Lu Qianhao's head was hit, causing a slight concussion. There was also a scratch, a comminuted fracture of his right leg, and many soft tissue contusions on his body. When he was pushed out of the operating room, Wuxia could not help but cover her mouth and cry. Was that still her son? He was wrapped in gauze and half of his hair was shaved off. Her poor son suffered so much pain at such a young age. And all of this was caused by Lu Jianfeng. Hatred, like a budding vine, grew and spread in her heart. She bit the back of her hand hard. Her eyes were frighteningly cold. Wang Minghan anxiously paced back and forth in the living room with the phone in her hand. When she saw the video on TV, she was scared out of her wits. She didn't dare to call Lu Jianfeng, afraid that he would find out what she had done. She was anxious and didn't know who to ask for help. Later, she summoned up the courage to call Lu Jianfeng. Even if she was scolded by him, she would accept it. The most important thing now was to come up with a solution. She dialed again and again, but the phone was always turned off. She was about to go crazy. She locked herself in the bedroom, wrapped herself in the quilt, and cried in fear. The next day, Wang Minghan went to work at the kindergarten. When she walked to the school gate, she met a few colleagues. She found that they were looking at her with disdain. Some of them even whispered that she was a vixen who seduced other people's husbands. She was ashamed and wronged. Her eyes turned red. She bit her lip and walked quickly to the school. Suddenly, a middle-aged woman rushed in front of her. She grabbed her hair and slapped her while shouting, "You vixen, how dare you seduce my husband? I'll tear your face apart. Let's see how you seduce other men." This was the school gate. The middle-aged woman's ruckus attracted a lot of people. Children, parents, and kindergarten teachers all came to watch the show. Wang Minghan was in pain and shame. She struggled and explained, "I didn't. You've got the wrong person." Where did this middle-aged woman come from? She had never seen her before. Could it be that Wuxia found her? Wang Minghan guessed right. This shrewish middle-aged woman was found by Wuxia. Wuxia wore sunglasses and sat in her car, coldly looking at Wang Minghan, who was being beaten and scolded by the middle-aged woman. She originally didn't want to touch Wang Minghan, but after her son got into a car accident because of her and Lu Jianfeng's scandal, her heart was filled with hatred. "I'll beat you to death, you vixen. I'll let you seduce other people's husbands. I've seen a lot of sluts like you. Isn't it just because my husband is rich and powerful? In ancient times, you're just a concubine in my family. You're just a plaything for men to enjoy. If I want to hit you, I'll hit you. If I want to scold you, I'll scold you. If I'm unhappy, I'll sell you to a brothel and let you be ridden by thousands of people. Let's see what you're so proud of, you little bitch." The middle-aged woman's fighting strength was very strong. She grabbed Wang Minghan and beat and scolded her, completely ruining her inside and face. Wang Minghan was a delicate and weak little white flower. How could she be a match for a woman? After being slapped a few times, her entire face swelled up like a steamed bun. Her eyes were filled with tears as she cried pitifully. She kept saying, "You've got the wrong person. I didn't seduce your husband." Unfortunately, the surrounding people were mostly women. No one liked a mistress and no one was confused by her tears. They all chimed in and pointed at her. "I didn't expect her to be such a person. She looks pure and kind on the surface, but she's actually a little slut. She's seducing one man after another. Her methods are really brilliant. Men just like this kind of enchanting woman. Bah, what the hell is this? Isn't she just a high-class prostitute? Those prostitutes are nobler than her. At least they didn't destroy other people's families. Last time, my husband took the initiative to participate in the class meeting. I even said that the sun rose from the west. I didn't expect him to be fascinated by this vixen. Transfer class, we must transfer my child's class. Under the education of this kind of teacher, can the child grow up normally? This kind of bad woman doesn't deserve to be a teacher at all. Those who agree, come with me to the principal's office and ask to transfer your child's class." The scene became more and more lively. Some people who were watching the show couldn't help but take out worthless things from their bags and throw them at Wang Minghan. "What are you doing? What are you doing? Hurry up and let go. If you hit her again, we'll call the police." Several security guards hurried over and coaxed the people who were watching the show away. They also separated the middle-aged woman and Wang Minghan. The middle-aged woman left a few harsh words and cursed as she walked away. Wang Minghan was incomparably embarrassed. Her hair was messy, her cheeks were swollen, and her clothes were torn. She was like a beggar who had climbed out of a pile of beggars. Faced with the contemptuous eyes and sarcastic words of the people around her, she could no longer hold on. She covered her cheeks and cried as she ran out of the school. She didn't care about any work anymore. She just wanted to hide in a corner where there was no one around and no longer suffer the ridicule and cold eyes of the world. She ran to the car that Lu Jianfeng had bought for her and found that the car's windows were broken and the tires were punctured. She had no choice but to cover her face and take a taxi. She was so embarrassed that even 2 taxi drivers refused to take her. When she finally found a taxi, she shrank into the back seat and cried until she was out of breath. Her phone suddenly rang. She thought that it was Lu Jianfeng calling, so she quickly took out her phone. However, she found that it was an unfamiliar number. Hello, is this Wang Yingying's mother? Yingying got into a fight with a classmate. Please come to the school. Wang Minghan was anxious and asked in a hoarse voice, why would Yingying get into a fight with someone? She has always been very obedient. Are the children hurt? The person on the other end of the phone hesitated for a moment and said, the two children have some scratches. It's not convenient to say some things over the phone. You'd better come to the school. Wang Minghan was anxious and couldn't be bothered to cry anymore. After returning home, she hurriedly washed up and put on a mask and sunglasses before going out to the primary school that Wang Yingying attended. In the form teacher's office, Wang Minghan saw her daughter, the boy who fought with her daughter, Xiaonan, and Xiaonan's mother. The two children sat silently in a chair while the form teacher talked to Xiaonan's mother. When the woman saw Wang Yingying appear, she immediately stood up and shouted in dissatisfaction, "You're Wang Yingying's mother? How did you educate your child? Look at how your daughter has beaten my son." Xiaonan's lips were scratched and his cheeks were scratched by her nails. Wang Yingying's injuries were worse than his. Her forehead was cut and bandaged, making her look extremely pitiful. Wang Minghan's heart ached. She bent down and looked at her daughter's face. She said sternly, "Yingying, tell mommy, why did you fight with your classmate?" Tears welled up in Wang Yingying's eyes as she said tearfully, "Xiaonan scolded me first. He said that I was the daughter of a vixen and that I was an illegitimate child. Mommy, I'm not an illegitimate child. I have an uncle." Wang Minghan's heart felt like it was being stabbed by a knife. She pulled her daughter into her arms and turned to look at the woman. She said angrily, "Did you hear that? It was your son who scolded my daughter first. She's still so young. How could he say such vicious words to hurt her?" The woman stared at Wang Minghan's red and swollen cheeks in disdain and sneered, "Since you've become a whore, don't pretend to be chaste. You're a vixen to begin with. My son didn't say anything wrong." Wang Minghan cried out involuntarily, "But my daughter is innocent. How could you adults educate your child like this? Aha, you're just a national mistress. How dare you talk to me about education? Don't make me laugh my head off. Your daughter beat my son up like this. She has to apologize to Xiaonan." "Why? It's clearly your son's fault. If there's an apology, he should be the one to do it first." The two women quarreled like crazy. The homeroom teacher was about to be angered to death by them. What kind of quality was this? They were about the same. She slammed the table and said loudly, "This is a school. Please calm down. Don't set a bad example for your child." The two women finally regained their senses under the reprimand of the homeroom teacher. They reluctantly made up. "Mom, why do people say that I'm an illegitimate child? Why do they scold you? Mom, does uncle not want us anymore?" On the way home, her daughter curled up in Wang Minghan's arms and cried softly like a pitiful kitten. She cried until her heart ached. She hugged her daughter tightly and shed tears of regret. "I'm sorry, baby. It's all Mom's fault. All of this is Mom's fault. If she hadn't been greedy and vain back then, if she hadn't been so ambitious and just lived a peaceful life with her daughter, if, however, in this world there weren't so many ifs. Since she had made a choice, she had to pay the price for her choice. Even if it was a bitter fruit, she had to swallow it." Beauty Novel, Songshu 566. Chapter 931. She carried her daughter back home and found Lu Jianfeng sitting on the sofa waiting for her. She was filled with grievances and sadness. "Ah, Feng." Before she could finish her words, Lu Jianfeng slapped her face. The loud sound scared Wang Yingying so much that she burst into tears. Lu Jianfeng's face was green as he said sternly, "Don't cry." Wang Yingying was so scared that her body trembled. Her face was pale as she held back her tears. Wang Minghan's heart ached. She bit her lips and said, "Don't scare the child. If you have anything to say, let's talk in the room." Lu Jianfeng grabbed her wrist and dragged her to the master bedroom. He threw her onto the big bed. His whole body was filled with anger. He pointed at her nose and scolded, "Who do you think you are? How dare you make a scene in front of my wife? Wang Minghan, has your brain been eaten by a dog?" "I'm sorry, Ah Feng. I really didn't do it on purpose. I thought that Wuxia would make things difficult for you, so I wanted to plead with her. I didn't expect." Wang Minghan quickly got up and rushed to Lu Jianfeng's side. She hugged him tightly and kept saying, "I really didn't do it on purpose. Ah Feng, don't be angry. Don't be angry. Her face was full of scars and she didn't look beautiful at all. Now that she was showing a pitiful expression, it was even more terrifying. Lu Jianfeng's little bit of pity turned to ashes. He kicked her away and said angrily, "Get lost. This time, I'm in big trouble because of you. Hurry up and pack your things and go back to Hanqing City." She couldn't stay in Ying City any longer. If someone found out that Wang Minghan was his mistress, the image he had painstakingly built up would be destroyed. "Okay, I'll leave. Afeng, please don't leave Ying behind on account of our years of friendship. She's still so young she can't be without a father." Wang Minghan's face was full of tears. Even if she was forced to leave him, she wanted to find a good home for Ying so that she wouldn't have to suffer with her. Although Lu Jianfeng doted on his younger daughter and often used material things to make up for what he owed her, this kind of doting was controlled within a certain range. Once it crossed his bottom line, he would turn hostile. In his eyes, his power and status as well as his public image was something that Wang Minghan and her daughter could never hope to achieve. He was silent for a moment before he said in a deep voice, "Ying will still be raised by you. I will give you a sum of money, enough for you to live a prosperous life." Wang Minghan couldn't believe what she had just heard. She cried and begged him, begging him to take care of her daughter, but Lu Jianfeng had already made up his mind. She pestered him even more and he frowned impatiently. "No matter what you say, it's useless. Hurry up and pack your luggage. Go back to Hanqing today and never come back." Wang Minghan cried for a while, knowing that he would not change his mind. She could only endure the heartache and hurriedly pack her luggage. In less than an hour she packed up her valuables, took her daughter's little hand and walked out of the door. This apartment was bought under her name when Lu Jianfeng first started working in Ying City. She thought that she could stay here with her daughter forever. Who would have thought that she would be forced to leave after a few months? She held her daughter's hand and reluctantly looked at her one last time before she followed Lu Jianfeng into the elevator. The three of them had just walked downstairs when a group of reporters rushed up and snapped their cameras. The dazzling flashes made Wang Minghan unable to open her eyes. Her first reaction was to hug her daughter and hide her daughter's face in her arms. On the other hand, Lu Jianfeng's first reaction was to let go of Wang Minghan's arm and put some distance between them. "Mayor Lu, what's your relationship with Miss?" "Mayor Lu, someone on the internet said that you took care of Miss Wang Minghan. Is it true?" The reporters asked questions all at once. Their doubts were like a fierce tide that rushed towards Lu Jianfeng and Wang Minghan. They were surrounded by the reporters and could not escape. In the end, the security guards of the neighborhood came and coaxed the reporters away. Only then did the three of them escape. Before Lu Jianfeng could do anything, the news of him keeping a mistress spread like wildfire. It occupied the headlines of the radio stations and newspapers. When the news got deeper and deeper, everyone found that Wang Minghan looked very similar to Qin Tingfang. What did this mean? Suddenly, the kept woman incident was upgraded to a taboo love affair. Lu Jianfeng became the target of public criticism. The fair, upright and sincere image that he used to package was all destroyed. Thousands of people spat at him and called him a beast in human clothing. Wang Minghan was also dragged out and scolded. Even Qin Tingfang was implicated. Occasionally when she went out and was recognized, she would be pointed at and ridiculed. The Lu family had a certain foundation in Hanqing. It was not easy for them to cultivate a mayor. They wanted to use him to rise up the ranks. They did not expect Lu Jianfeng to do such a shameful thing. When the head of the Lu family, great-grandfather Lu, heard the news, he was anxious and angry. He stomped on the floor with his walking stick, almost poking a hole in the floor. After his anger subsided, great-grandfather Lu went around to pull strings to protect Lu Jianfeng. Unexpectedly, someone anonymously mailed a report to the relevant department. It was full of evidence that Lu Jianfeng had done a lot of illegal things. Which official could be innocent? They had more or less made some mistakes. However, some could be forgiven and some could not. Originally, Lu Jianfeng keeping a mistress was not a big deal. At most, he would be dismissed and could return to the political stage after a few years. However, he provoked Jiuqi. Jiuqi relied on Liang Yu, a super detective, to investigate many secrets. For example, Lu Jianfeng once opened the back door and stuffed the son of his old friend into the civil service. Another example was that he was old classmates with a construction company, and naturally he handed over several big projects to his old classmate. Even if he did things according to the proper procedures, as long as the other party had a personal relationship with him, bribery, malpractice, and other illegal things could be put on his head. When Lu Jianfeng's scandals were flying everywhere, Even if the higher-ups wanted to protect him, they had to consider the pressure of the public opinion. After that, the relevant department filed a case to investigate Lu Jianfeng's serious violations of the law. After investigation, Lu Jianfeng used the convenience of his position to seek benefits for others, accepted bribes, kept a mistress, and lived a corrupt lifestyle. This constituted a serious violation of the law. The relevant department decided to expel him from the party, remove him from public office, and confiscate his property. After Lu Jianfeng fell from the horse, Wuxia immediately packed her luggage and moved to her rented house. She filed a divorce lawsuit and asked the court to award her son and the flower shop. She didn't want anything else. Before the court hearing, Lu Jianfeng talked to Wuxia in private, trying to persuade her not to divorce. However, Wuxia was determined to divorce him. She looked into his eyes and said slowly, "Do you know when I found out that you were cheating? It was when Xiaohao was hospitalized and you were playing with Wang Menghan and her daughter at the amusement park." Lu Jianfeng's body stiffened. His deep eyes were filled with pain. He said in a deep voice, "Since you found out a long time ago, why did you wait until now to divorce me? Is it because I have nothing now that even you want to abandon me?" Wuxia wanted to laugh. In fact, she did laugh. She laughed until tears flowed out. She sighed and said, "Lu Jianfeng, we've known each other for more than 20 years. Even now you still don't understand me. Do you think I'm the kind of woman who loves you because of your power and status? For Lil Hao's sake, I didn't want to get a divorce. I wanted to live a peaceful life. However, I didn't expect Wang Menghan to cause a scene in front of me. You caused Lil Hao to get into a car accident. Lu Jianfeng, do you know how much I hated you when Lil Hao was injured? I can't live with you anymore." Big drops of tears rolled down from the corners of her eyes. The smile on her face was bitter and sad. She tugged at the corner of her lips and continued, "As you wish, I'll grant you and Wang Menghan your wish." Chapter 932. Over the next few days she could clearly feel the servants' attitudes towards her change. Jiuqi and her brother no longer bothered to maintain their harmony on the surface. When they saw her, they didn't even bother to greet her. Ji Bowen also looked at her strangely, as if he would abandon her at any time. Qin Tingfang's heart was in a mess. After thinking for a long time, she dialed a number. In the dark night, the bedside lamp was still on. She leaned back against the pillow and said slowly, "Old Li Ji Bowen will soon ask for a divorce. We need to start the plan as soon as possible." On the other end of the phone, a man's deep voice sounded, "I'm ready. I'm just waiting for you to say the word. Give me a time." Qin Tingfang lowered her voice and said something. The man responded and the two exchanged a few more words. Finally, the room returned to silence. Ever since Lu Jianfeng fell from grace, Jiuqi also raised her guard. She asked Liang Yu's men to help keep an eye on Qin Tingfang and the people she had been in contact with in case Qin Tingfang was driven into a corner and did something bad again. Ji Bowen contacted his lawyer in private and drafted a divorce agreement. He planned to officially ask Qin Tingfang for a divorce after the anniversary of his ex-wife's death. Every year, on the anniversary of his ex-wife's death, Ji Bowen would lead the children to her grave with incense, paper money and other offerings. 2 days later, it was the anniversary of his ex-wife's death. That morning, Qin Tingfang personally cooked breakfast for Ji Bowen and the others, just like in previous years. After breakfast, she politely sent them to the front door and reminded them to be careful on the road and come home early. As soon as the car disappeared from the front door, the smile on Qin Tingfang's face immediately disappeared and her phoenix eyes turned cold. Ever since she married into the Ji family, Ji Bowen didn't allow her to pay her respects to Su Meiyu. Perhaps he was doing it out of kindness. But, in her eyes, his actions meant that she would never be recognized by his ex-wife. Since he loved Su Meiyu so much, she would let the four of them reunite in the underworld. Ji Bowen had no idea that he was leading the children on a road of death. After driving for half an hour, the black BMW left the city and entered the ring highway. The family of three chatted leisurely. Suddenly Jiuqi's phone rang. After she picked it up, she heard Liang Yu's anxious voice, "Miss Ji, tell the driver to stop the car. Your car is leaking oil." "Oil leaking?" Jiuqi's heart tightened and she cried out anxiously, "Uncle Wang, stop the car." As soon as she finished speaking, a small truck drove towards them. The truck driver was wearing a hat that was pulled low, covering half of his face. His right hand was placed on the car window with a burning cigarette between his fingers. He flicked his finger and the cigarette flew towards the BMW Jiuchi was sitting in. Looking from afar, there was a long gasoline stain on the road where the BMW drove past. The truck driver's cigarette but went under the BMW's body and fell on the oil stain. A flame instantly sprang up and the flame burned brighter and brighter. Soon it covered the entire windshield. The sound of emergency brakes, screams and the sound of cars colliding echoed in the air. Finally there was a loud bang and a deafening explosion. The BMW was engulfed in flames. Our station's latest news is that there was a car accident on the Ring Highway. A black BMW crashed into the roadside railing and exploded. The passengers in the car died on the spot. The identity of the car owner and the cause of the accident are still under investigation. When Qin Tingfang saw the news on TV, she was so excited that she almost went crazy. Ji Bowen's family of 3 was finally dead. Now the entire Ji family was hers. She tried her best to suppress the excitement in her heart and quickly ran back to her bedroom. She dialed the man's number and her voice trembled with excitement. "Oldly, did you see the news? Ji Bowen is finally dead. Ji Group is ours." The man laughed heartily. "Of course I saw it. The person I found is definitely reliable. When the news of Ji Bowen's death spreads, we'll immediately..." In the empty room, the two of them colluded with each other and excitedly plotted how to take over Ji Group. That afternoon, the radio station released the latest news saying that the identity of the car owner had been confirmed. The car owner was the president of Ji Group, Ji Bowen. He had died on the spot due to an oil leak in his car. Once the news spread, the entire Ji Group was in an uproar. The few people who had a good relationship with Ji Bowen were very sad about his death. Most people were anxious and wanted to appoint a new president as soon as possible to prevent Ji Group's share price from being affected. The board of directors held an emergency meeting. One of the directors, Li Jingxing, suggested that the president should be decided by the number of shares. As soon as he proposed this decision, it immediately attracted opposition. The president is the executor of a company. It must be a person with outstanding ability. If the president is decided by the number of shares, it's too hasty. A director who had a good relationship with Ji Bowen said, "That's right, I don't agree either. The president should be decided by ability." Another director said, "After Bowen's death, his shares will be inherited by his children. I think that his daughter Yuqi is very capable and can take on this great responsibility." Li Jingxing's eyes moved slightly. He looked up at the person who spoke and said with a pained expression, "Director Sun, don't you know? Yuqi and Ahan were both in the BMW. They were also killed." "What? How could this be?" Director Sun was shocked. He had heard about Ji Bowen's death from the news. The news only said that the passengers in the car had died on the spot and did not say how many there were. He thought that Yuqi and Ahan were not in the car. He did not expect that the two of them were also. Director Sun was heartbroken. He pounded his fist on the table bitterly. The atmosphere in the meeting room instantly froze. Some people wiped their tears with red eyes, some were silent and some were expressionless. No one knew what they were thinking. Li Zhengxing cleared his throat and said slowly, "I, like everyone, feel very sad and regretful about what happened to Bowen and the 2 children. However, the Ji Group can't go a day without a leader. We need a leader. I wonder if everyone has any thoughts on the candidate for the CEO?" The man sitting opposite Li Zhengxing was already bald. He had a chubby figure and when he smiled he looked like a Maitreya Buddha. He said gently, "I propose that Director Li be the CEO. Director Li has been the Vice President of Administration for a long time, and we have all seen his ability. I think that in this time of crisis only he can lead the Ji Group to new heights. Agree with my proposal? Please raise your hands." After he finished speaking, no one raised their hands. After a few seconds, 2 people finally raised their hands. After that, people continued to raise their hands. In the end, there were exactly half of them. If more than half of the people voted, then the proposal would be passed. The chubby director who had spoken earlier wanted to say a few more words to encourage everyone to support Li Jingxing, but Director Sun spoke first. "Before I see the bones of Bowen and the 2 children, I will not agree to anyone being the CEO." After saying this, he slammed his palm on the table and stared at Li Jingxing with his sharp eyes. He said sternly, "Everyone, how many of you have followed Bowen to conquer the world and come to where you are today? At this moment when his life and death are unknown, all you think about is how to seize power. Do you still have a conscience?" Li Jingxing's expression darkened and he said coldly, "Director Sun, please watch your words. We are all thinking for the Ji Group. We don't have any bad intentions. Besides, the media has already made it very clear that COG is dead. Why can't you accept reality? Just as the two of them were in a stalemate, the door of the meeting room was pushed open. Chen Tingfang was wearing a black dress and black high heels. She walked in gracefully and said with a sad expression, "Everyone, my husband has passed away. He left a will. Now lawyer Zhang will announce the contents of the will to everyone." Behind her was a man in a black suit with a briefcase in his hand. It was the Ji family's lawyer Zhang Jijia. Zhang Jijia took out a sealed will from his briefcase and announced in front of everyone, "Mr. Ji has divided the assets into 3 parts. The first part is 5% of Ji Group's shares and the Ji family's villa, which will be inherited by Madame Chen Tingfang. The second part is 10% of Ji Group's shares and the Su family's old mansion, which will be inherited by Ji Yuqi. The third part is 10% of Ji Group's shares and all the Ji family's cash, savings and various funds, which will be inherited by Ji Yunhan." After the announcement he glanced at everyone and said slowly, "Since Ji Yuqi and Ji Yunhan both died in the car accident, their assets will be inherited by Madame Chen Tingfang." In other words, Chen Tingfang alone received all the Ji family's assets. Everyone looked at each other and exchanged glances. If the CEO's position was determined by the number of shares, then Chen Tingfang would be the biggest winner. Director Sun's face darkened. He stood up suddenly and said, "I still say the same thing. Before I see the bodies of Bowen and the 2 children, I won't acknowledge anyone." Chen Tingfang's nails dug into her palms. She had gone to the traffic control team to identify the bodies, but they said that after the car explosion, the bodies were seriously damaged and they had to deal with it to prevent the families from being unable to bear it. In other words, she had not seen the bodies of Ji Bowen and the other 2 until now. Everyone's eyes were focused on Chen Tingfang, as if they were waiting to see a good show. Chen Tingfang's eyes were calm. She took out a document from her handbag and said slowly, "This is the death certificate issued by the hospital. If Director Sun has any questions you can ask the hospital directly." Director Sun snatched the death certificate from her hand. It clearly stated that Ji Bowen and Ji Yuqi had lost their lives after being sent to the hospital. He held the death certificate tightly and squeezed out a few words from between his teeth. "Even so, don't even think about taking away the Ji Group. This is Bowen's life's work. I won't allow it to fall into your hands." Chen Tingfang sneered. "Is that so? I have Bowen's will now. I have the right to inherit 30% of Ji Group's shares. According to the rules, I have the right to control this company. What are you going to use to stop me? It's only 30% and you're so arrogant. As expected of a woman with long hair and short knowledge. What ability do you have to control the overall situation? If the Ji Group is handed over to you, it will only be destroyed in your hands. Come and see." Xinwu 799, that you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.